Hey guys, what up? It's your boy Harry Wilmington here. Welcome to a live edition of the Introvert Dating Success Show. Now, I had this plan to go live at 7, but I got a lot to talk about because today's show is basically going to be me going through all the various comments I've gotten over the last week and a half and giving commentary to them. Obviously, you guys like my stuff, and so I've gotten a lot of comments, some of which I wanted to make bigger shows about, and some of them I'm actually going to save for bigger shows. But for this show, I'm going to go through the comments that I've gotten up to today and just answer any questions or just give commentary on stuff that I saw. All right. By the way, my shows are for the live shows. You guys can ask questions at any time during the actual show, and I'll be happy to answer your question as I'm going over these other various comments that have already been left for me as well. All right. Also, guys, for those of you that have listened to the Non Juan album, the No Girls For You album, thank you so much. I've received great feedback on it. For the rest of you, you can check it out by going to the website and clicking on the products tab. You can also find it on any streaming service. Again, it's called Non Juan, No Girls For You. It's the soundtrack to my ebook, and it's got 10 songs on it. Also, I'm going to be releasing another album as myself on May 5th. I can't tell you too many details about it, but it's going to be awesome. So I'll save that for a later conversation. In the meantime, like I said, guys, the show is all about you. So if you have any questions, let me know. But I'm going to go over a few things, comments, and stuff that I've gotten. Okay. Now, here's the first one. So here's the interesting observation I made over the past week. All right. So I'm a YouTube guy, obviously. And so on the back end of YouTube, they have what's called YouTube Analytics. And in looking at my analytics from the last week, it's interesting to see how those analytics correlate with the way that women take on dating and the idea of mystery making a woman stay around a lot longer than if you just tell her everything up front and then she ends up not staying around. Now, guys tend to get frustrated by that. They're like, why can't I just say everything I want to say about myself up front? Why can't I just be the guy that can just tell them everything and not have them scared, right? So check this out. So this past week, I did an interesting experiment. There's been a few comments that have been left on my YouTubes from time to time where people said things like, Harry, we like your video, but you're taking a long time to get to the point of this video. I saw one comment that was like, I'm already 6 minutes in and I'm bored. And so here's what he's basically trying to say for the rest of you. So I did an experiment this week. For this past week, if you guys have watched my videos, I've done a thing where I'll say, hey, so today's topic is going to be about, for example, the 5 reasons women pull away, right? And I'd say, now, here's the reasons off the top. Here's reason 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to go into more detail for the rest of you that want to watch, right? And so I did that for every single video this past week where I would give out at the beginning of the video, this is what I'm going to talk about. And in fact, let me just give you the points right now. They call it TLDR, too long, didn't read. For those of you that don't want to stick around, here's what I'm going to be talking about. So there you go. You got your answer. And now I'm going to talk about what I was just told you guys I was going to talk about. And I looked over the analytics for this past week. Now, normally with my videos, there's usually it starts off high and then it kind of, over time, as people are watching it, it slows down because it goes from 80% engagement to midway through the video, it's about 60%, which is a pretty good holdover rate, right? But that's when I'm not telling people at the beginning of the video what I'm going to talk about and just giving them the answer right away. So what do you think happened when I gave the answer to the question I was going to talk about at the beginning of the video? Almost an instant drop off. It went from halfway through the video, the retainer would be 60% to a minute and a half into the video, the retainer rate's down to 40% across the board. Now, why was that? It's because I gave away all the answers about what I was going to talk about. And people are like, okay, I got the answer. I'm clicking off. So how does this now correlate to dating? Because again, mostly are guys that are watching my channel. Obviously, Chelsea, hi. That's not including you. You're a woman, obviously. So, there are women that watch this. But the majority of my audience is men, right? And men are the ones that are complaining about how they want to be able to tell a woman up front everything about them and then don't understand why she's not holding on. And yet, when I, as a guy, gave them all the information up front, those men checked out. So this is why it's better for you as a guy to not give every single thing about you up front to a woman, because women like the journey of a relationship. They like being able to take their time to hear about you. They might be a little bit frustrated, but the frustration comes in the fact that they want to know more and that the only way they get to know more is to go out with you more and to ask you questions. And then what really turns them on is if they're with a guy that's not outwardly giving them all the answers that they're asking right away. And that's how you get to the 3-month mark with a woman is you take your time, you're patient, and you don't blab all about yourself. So to all you guys that were frustrated that women are doing that you can't do that with a woman when you're with her, I just got the same results from all of you guys when I was trying to do that with you. When I was trying to be up front and think, okay, if I give them the information up front about what I'm going to talk about, then they'll stick around and hear the explanation. And that did not happen. All right. So going forth, I'm going to be like doing the normal thing of today's topic is going to be about this and the 5 reasons why. And I'm going to slowly dole out what those reasons are because that holds people's attention. Much like in dating, you shouldn't be answering a woman's all her questions on the first date or trying to blab all about yourself because that's how you're going to actually lose her a lot faster. So hopefully this example from me and what I did this past week helps you guys out. All right. Now, before I get to the comments that I have ready to read, I'm going to read this person's question who said, energy gives a lot about how a woman feels about you. Thoughts. I don't quite understand based on how you worded that, what you mean by that. If you're asking if the energy that a woman gives to you explains a lot about how she feels for you, then that's accurate on some level. But most women, honestly, are really good on first dates at being like, okay, I'm going to be happy and jovial because they got a lot of hope. If they said yes to a first date with you, they got a lot of hope that you're going to be the guy that this works out with. And they can hold that hope throughout the date. But if you start saying the wrong things, you start maybe touching her a little bit too much or start doing things that are unappealing to her, then it could be turning her off, but she can still have that up energy. All right. Now, to the other side of that, if you go on a date and you have good energy about you, then more often than not, that's going to translate over to her because there are a lot of guys that go on a date and they're anxious and they're apprehensive and they're thinking, well, I'm nervous and oh my gosh, this girl's probably not going to like me. And yet they're surprised at the end of the date when the woman didn't like them. Yeah, this is why I tell you guys about having an abundance mindset and about being positive because those things really do translate. And women are really, really good at being able to read energy and feed off of it. And most women on dates are going to follow your energy. So if you're happy and you're upbeat, even if she's having just an okay time, at nothing else, she'll say, at least I had a fun time. He's not for me, but I had a good time. But if you're on the date, apprehensive and nervous and cowering in the corner, like I'm going to ask you a question. Oh my God. And I'm so nervous and blah, blah. And the worst advice I've ever heard, by the way, is somebody telling a guy, hey, when you go on a date with a woman, you should tell her that you're nervous. When has telling a woman that you're nervous ever made her think, oh, he's nervous, I feel good about this date now? That never happens. So I would say do not go on dates and tell women that you're nervous. If you are nervous, sweat it out beforehand, tell your boys about it, but you go on that date being the most confident version of yourself possible. Now, if you guys need help on how to build that kind of confidence, obviously I'm going to plug, go down to introvertdatingsuccess.com, click on coaching. I'll be happy to help you out with that. I got a $4.99 super chat, I guess. So he says, thank you. So he said, Coach Harry, I saw your thumbnail with my question about reasons a man should pull away. Yes, we're going to definitely get to that in a brief amount of time. That's definitely on the block for things to answer. Matter of fact, I just answer it now. Okay, so because I have my comments pulled up and I have to roll through them, so I don't have the exact wording in front of me at the moment of what your question was. But basically, his question was asking about when should a man pull away from a woman? Because I've done plenty of videos talking about why women pull away from men, right? And so his question is, what are some reasons that men should pull away from women? The honest answer is there's plenty of red flags that women will show that will indicate that you as a guy should not be there. But the biggie ones are basically any kind of sign she's showing where she's not indicating that she wants to actually engage with you. It's most guys will do this thing where like a woman is starting to show those signs, and then as the guy, we're holding on to hope that we can make this thing happen. So she starts texting less, calling less. We ask her out on dates and she's saying no to them. Obviously, at that point, she's pulling away. But a lot of guys at that point in time have a hard time then pulling away also. And so in those situations, you got to recognize it for what it is and recognize that either A, you're not being patient enough, or B, that she just has low interest and you got to get out. Now, let's say the woman is highly interested. This is when you get into, okay, just because she's highly interested, does that mean that you actually stick around and try to date her? And there are plenty of signs out there that women will also show. A big one that I find is this. If a woman is getting jealous anytime you mention going to hang out with other people, big red flag. Another big red flag, if in particular, if every time you're not around her, she starts to ask questions via text or whatever, saying, well, are you cheating on me? Are you around other women? What's going on? Then those are indicators that she has some major issues in her past to get over, and you can't be the one to help her solve that. Real talk. And I've talked about this on the show before, but I had a woman, this Armenian woman I dated years ago, who to be fair to her, on our first date, she said she didn't want to hook up early on. I said, okay, cool, whatever. Cause I'm always like, if you ain't gotta hook up, we ain't got to do that. Right. Second date comes around. I take her back to my place after a night out. We watch a movie on the couch, yada, yada, yada. She doesn't want to do stuff. I'm like, stuff doesn't have to happen. I'm not pushing an agenda. And by the end of the night, we do some stuff. It is what it was. So on our third date, she starts talking about how she's been abused in the past. And how every guy prior to me that she's dated, she's been abused by, she's been cheated on, all this other stuff. And I'm thinking at the time, superhero syndrome. Oh, I'm going to show her that I'm different, and I'm going to show her that I'm not like those other guys, right? But what I learned from the situation is that just because a woman tells you these bad things happen to me doesn't mean that she wasn't the catalyst for some of that stuff. So there was a moment in time. This is just the dating phase. We've been on 3 dates. My best guy friend had a birthday party, and he was going to have a party on a boat where he invited me and some other friends to just go out to Long Beach and get on a boat for a part of the day and just hang out for like 3 hours or whatever, right? And so I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to be going on this party with my friend, yada, yada, yada. And she says to me, okay, well, just make sure you don't touch any other women's butts while you're on that boat. Ha, ha, ha. I was like, that wasn't even in my thought process. And I was like, at the time, even though I was we weren't couple, but we were just dating. I was like, I didn't even have that thought in my head that I'm going to go on this boat and try to like hit up other women. Wasn't in my head, but I was just like, okay, whatever. So I go on the party, have a good time. Next day I see her. She's like, oh, tell me about the party. He's like, yeah, I had a good time on the boat, 3 hours. Just got to ride out, have some good food, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, okay, great. Oh, did you touch any butts while you were out there? Big red flag. So at that point, I'm already like, okay, this is already kind of going haywire. She's getting already kind of antsy and jealous. And to be fair, this is just the dating phase. We're not coupled up. I could technically still see other people to try to get a better gauge of who I want it to be within the end. But that's not how she dated. And that's totally fine. But the point is, the big thing came when there was a day where, long story short, the apartment I was living in near Santa Monica in Western California, which if you guys know about California, which I didn't know at the time, that's where the MS-13 gang is. And they got a lot of people out there doing crimes and stuff. Well, my apartment one day got robbed by a meth head. He came in while I was at work, and he took my clothes and some of my random stuff and then ran with it. But the problem was he lived in the same building. So when I got back, the landlady at the time, who's one of my friends, said, yeah, like this guy came in and he's barricaded in his room. We called the cops. They had to like really like ram his door open and tase him so that way they could get him out of the room and I could go in there and identify my stuff. Well, because of that little happy incident, I had to go to court to be a witness to this guy that he stole my stuff. And I told this girl that I was dating, hey, just so you know, I'm going to court tomorrow and I'll be there for like all day. So I'll hit you up when I get out of court. 'Cause it's gonna be a long, long day. Right. Well, when you go to court, one of the things that they tell you in court is when you're sitting in court, you can't have your phone on. So I had my phone off for like the first part of the morning. Oh, by the way, the end of that story is we ended up going to the wrong courtroom all day. So me and my landlord friend had to go back another day. Only this time I didn't have to go. But anyway, but there was a 12:30 break for lunch. So at the lunch break, I turned my phone on so I can just check my emails and see who else called me or whatever like that. And I got like 13 messages on my phone, like voice messages. And I'm listening, and it's this woman. And she's like, hey, how you doing, Harry? Let me know if you're okay. I want to talk to you. Another message. Hey, why aren't you picking up the phone? It's me. Come please pick up. Next message. Hey, why can't I reach you? What's going on? Is everything okay? Are you cheating on me? What's happening? Next message. She's crying now. Hey, just if you're like with somebody else right now, just let me know because I just really need to know. So at that point, I had a choice to make. Do I try to continue to date this woman and try to prove to her that I'm not like all the other guys in her past? Or do I say, this woman has some serious work to do and I got to pull the heck away because I can't handle all this? And so I literally texted her back and I said, hey, I told you I was going to be in court today. My phone was off because they wouldn't allow us to have them on. I don't think this is going to work out. I got to go. We're done. And after that, she tried to call me a few more times and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, yada, yada, yada. But I was like, that's too much of an upfront example of you have too many problems for me to fix. And I'm not going to try to be Superman. I'm not going to try to fix them for you. It's not my job to fix you. It's your job to figure out why you have all these hangups. It's your job to figure out why you keep dating these men that are horrible choices. And I can't be the one to do that. So when women are upfront, show these kind of things where like they're overly jealous or they seemingly possessive or they're needy or they do some of the stuff that guys do where they're texting all the time, calling all the time, nonstop, not giving you your space. You might be at home trying to have an alone time day and they try to sneak by your place to see if you're there, knock on your door, whatever like that. Like those are really like the anxious insecurity signs. And somebody actually wrote in the comments they want me to do a show about the various attachment styles. I'm trying to get somebody on the show that I can actually talk to about that. That's a doctor, so they can really further talk about like the various attachment styles and how they affect the way we date. But yeah, women showing stuff like that. If women are telling you stuff about their past and their family life that indicates that they had a rough family life, whether it's like their dad abused them, their mom abused them, or they themselves like got into drugs and alcohol, it's not that they're bad people, but these are major things that are going to influence the way that she views the world and the way that she views men. And oftentimes women will have negative viewpoints about you as a man based on, again, stuff that happened in her past that has nothing to do with you. And no matter how much you're there trying to convince her that you're not going to be that guy or that you're different or whatever, the reality is if she hasn't done the work on herself, her view of the world is already such that she's going to assume bad things. And that's going to leave her constantly questioning you, questioning your motives, questioning why you're out, questioning why you're being such a nice guy to her. Like those are the situations where in the long run, it's better to pull away early on before you get in it too long than to lead it on. Because what's going to happen is if you don't, you'll get into it like a year. And then it's going to be harder for you to be able to emotionally pull away from that person because as a guy, once you put all this effort, energy, time, and money into a person, it's very, very hard. Like I've done some breakups with people that I've dated for like a year or 2 years where I put a lot of energy and effort in. And I was just like, at the end of the day, as much as I want to be with this person, I can just see where this is going to go. And it's just not worth it. All right. So this is why as a guy, you have to have your glasses on of the world at all times and really be able to get outside the feelings of, yeah, that you find them hot, you find them like you physically want to hook up with them and really see about, okay, but can they actually be a good person long-term or do they partner with me well? I will say this also, like a big thing, the big ones, religion, politics, and also how you view male and female dynamics. And I will tell you, to be honest, like the season of Kevin Samuels that he was here, a lot of couples broke up because women were not understanding that the way he was talking about how men think was a reality. And so I think some women haven't actually done the homework on the way men think, the way they act, why they come to decisions the way they do. And those are not women you want to be with long-term because no matter how much you try to explain your point of view, they're always going to see it as like, that shouldn't be a thing. You should think more like a woman. You should be more emotional about stuff. And those are women you're going to be fighting with all the time. So if honestly, the biggest gauge you could say is like, hey, have you heard of Kevin Samuels? What do you think of his stuff? And if she fights you or just says you're being misogynistic, get out. Just get out. So hopefully those are some things that can help you with that particular question. All right. So let's get into some of these comments that I have pulled up here to start answering. So let me just scroll through these. Let's see. Okay. So yes, let's pull back one. I got a lot of comments. Basically, the general comments I get on the pull away test also is like, there's no point in wasting time or emotional energy passing pull away tests. And so to that, I'll say this. I believe that as a general rule, if a woman is starting to pull away from you, it's probably because there's a high chance that she's just no longer interested, whether it's she found out something about you, whether it's because she found somebody else that she likes more. Those things realistically do happen. So I never want you guys to think that with the pull away video that I'm saying that it's, if a woman pulls away, it's just totally your fault. I do believe that women, when they start not liking you, they're not really good at being upfront and just saying, hey, I don't want to date you anymore. So usually they'll just ghost and go away. But the point of the pull away test video is also for you guys to recognize that there are women out there that would have legitimately dated you if you yourself had not been doing certain behaviors that cause women to pull away. So for example, yeah, if you're trying to call and text a woman every single day, that's an example of behavior that will cause her to start pulling away from you, even if she liked you at one point. All right. And so I just want guys to start to recognize that there are things that they legitimately do that cause women that like them to pull away. It's not to completely like say women will only pull away because whatever. It's like, no, like sometimes women pull away because they don't know how to say I don't like you. And that's a fair point in assessment, and that you should not be wasting your time on those type of women. But to the ones that are pulling away because you're doing a bit too much, those can be salvaged at times if you start to recognize that, oh crap, like she's texting back less. Maybe it's because I'm texting too much. Let me scale back. And there was a comment that was left later on where this guy says, like, yeah, I was that guy that like I was texting too much and I decided to like stop texting her. And next thing I know, she's texting me and blowing up my phone. Yeah, because this whole thing about, I say all the time, if they're chasing you, they can't be replacing you. Women do want to chase you. As the guy, your job is to show interest and do the things that indicate that you are building an interest, but it's also their job to come to you, because when women find a great man and they see a great things about you and the potential this could be for a relationship, they're not finding that every day. So they're going to be more apt to come towards you. But again, if you're not allowing the space for her to be able to chase you, then that's going to take away her want and need to do that. And it's going to cause her to either lose interest or build interest a lot slower. You can actually rapidly build a woman's interest by simply not texting and calling so much. So that's what that's about. Let's see, continuing on here. Okay, this guy said, I watched this other dating coach named Chris 60. He talks about there's two different feelings you can give to a woman. The number 2 feeling is compliments, favors, gifts, kissing her butt basically and being a pushover. Can't say no to her. Overall, just overdoing it. This is the nice guy category. She becomes the boss. The number one feeling is liking her, but you can take things slow. You're not all up in her business all the time. You have boundaries, self-respect, and value your time and energy. You can say no to her and stand up for yourself. You give her space and time to put in her own effort and chase you. He claims that if you really think you're such a nice guy, then stop giving her the number 2 feeling. If you're as nice as you say you are, you should be giving her the number 1 feeling, which is her thinking about you and anticipating spending time with you like she has to work to get it. You know, a few years ago, this is my college years. This is when I first started to get an idea of, is being a nice guy, do women actually care if you're being a nice guy or not? And this is a small thing, right? Years ago at college, I was that guy that would open doors for women. Any place, if I was walking into a building and a woman was behind me, I would stop, open the door, open it. Because as growing up, we're taught, hey, open doors for women. It's a nice thing to do, right? Now, and I'm not doing that to try to get with a woman, but I started to notice that I would be doing that and women would just walk by me, wouldn't say thank you, wouldn't acknowledge that I existed. Just, I'd open the door, doop, they walk. And that. So in college, as I was starting to try to get out of my nice guy routine, I said, okay, you know what? From now on, I'm not going to open doors for women anymore. And I'm just going to see what the reaction is that I get. If they're going to yell at me, if they're going to be like, how dare you? You're not a gentleman and yada, yada, yada. I said, but I need to know what the reaction is going to actually be, because I need to start getting out of my headspace that I got to be nice all the time or women are going to blow up at me. So for the remainder of my college years, when I would be walking into a building, I would not open the door for any of the women. And you know, the response that I got back was nothing. Nobody cared. No women made any comments about it. I don't know if they went off later to the girlfriend and said, this guy, so-and-so, he opened the door, didn't blah, blah, blah. But like, no woman cared. No woman cared that I didn't answer, that I didn't open a single door for them. And so that got me thinking, what other behaviors am I doing that I think I need to do to attract women to be that nice guy that I don't actually have to do? And so bit by bit, I started taking away stuff. I ain't got to bring flowers. I ain't got to over compliment them on dates. Shoot, darn, sometimes I wouldn't even pay for the date. I'd go on the date and they paid for it, or we'd pay our halves or whatever. And then I'd find out later I'd still be able to like hook up with them. And it was the total like complete 180 from what I was taught. But that started to teach me that, yeah, like doing all these overly nice things, what I realized is that women, to be fair to women, I start to understand that women, the good women that have a good head on their shoulders and are relatively sane, recognize that they too need to be doing things to work for the relationship. And so to that end, yeah, if you're coming and just freely giving it, just like I said earlier when I was talking about the experiment I did for YouTube, where I was just giving the advice right away, it's like they don't respect that because they've done nothing to earn it. And most women subconsciously understand, hey, I need to earn this guy doing certain things for me or giving me what I call relationship benefits. And that's why a lot of you guys that are trying to give compliments early on and trying to get all these gifts early on are failing, because you're thinking, hey, I need to shower with all this stuff so she'll like me, not being aware that women subconsciously understand the thing of, if I'm getting this thing from this guy, he's expecting something in return. And then she's leveling out with, like, depending on how much you're giving, how much does she have to do? And a lot of times they'll think, well, if he's over-commenting, giving gifts, paying for this expensive dinner, his expectation is to hook up later. This is date one. I don't think I want to do that. But now I feel obligated because he gave me all this stuff. I feel antsy and I'm out. Versus if you do like what I typically do, where, hey, I teach you guys it takes 3 months. So I don't go on any date assuming after this date, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. I assume that's 90 days away. So all I'm trying to do is show a good time to a woman on the first date and a second date and a third date. I go into all these dates saying, I'm not expecting any kind of hookup, but I'm also not overextending myself. So first date, it might be a dinner if I'm hungry, but I've done walks in the parks. I've done picnics. I've done free stuff. I've done comedy shows that are like $5 or $10. Like it don't cost a lot, because those first couple of dates are supposed to be about connecting, feeling the energy, feeling the chemistry, getting to learn about each other. And those things are more important. And more importantly, it's not putting an overburden on her to think that she has to now reciprocate in a physical way. You know, so to that guy's point, yeah, like those first few dates, you don't have to do a whole lot. You take things slow. You're making yourself available, but not all the time. And these things will not make her feel overburdened, and they will make her want to come to you. So good on that guy for that comment. Let's see what we got next here. By the way, guys, like I said, this show is about you. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask me in the course of this thing, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Also, if you guys have any questions that you need more deep dives on, I do offer one-on-one coaching at the website, introvertdatingsuccess.com. So you can go there for that as well. Let's see if this is this guy. Oh, this guy had a long one. I think I mentioned this earlier. This guy was talking about, I'll go ahead and read it. So basically, because we had a back and forth. So this guy left a message under my video, 3 lessons to learn about yourself when women pull away, where I talk about the things guys need to start to observe in terms of their reaction to when women pull away. So this guy said, women who are difficult are not interested, or they feel they have other options and you are just on the list until they find what they want. The more indifferent she is, the more you slowly pull away from her. She is not the one. You can take grapes from a vine and you might only get one of those grapes that tastes great, and the rest or vast majority of those grapes are bitter and nasty. Are you going to then say your tongue is wrong? So then my reply to that was, if we're going to use the vine analogy, we can assume the vine came from a particular vineyard, right? This would be akin to men who hit on women in certain environments known for having women that are less stellar, your clubs, raves, bars, etc. I said, so to your analogy, if I were to take a woman from said environment, i.e. the vine, I might find one woman, i.e. the grape, that is great, with the vast majority being nasty. However, given that the majority of women in that particular environment are nasty, I wouldn't make the assumption that I have a high probability shot of finding a high quality woman there, i.e. on that vine. At the same time, I would not also then say, and therefore all women suck. I would say I have a higher chance at finding a high quality woman in a different environment, i.e. on a different grapevine. Maybe that means trying out a different vine, i.e. different location, or a different vineyard altogether. Or it could mean trying out different grapes, i.e. different types of women. And I said, lastly, I'm fully aware there are difficult women out there. My video was in reference to women who have a good head on their shoulders and are healthy and sane. Even with those women, they will still pull away if the man isn't showing up in the right way or being too accessible too early on. I don't feel the need to point out difficult women in most of these videos because I assume men are already smart enough to know not to keep dealing with them, but I need men to see that the things they themselves are doing could be making these situations more difficult than they need to be. Also, I want to point out that a real reason I don't point out a lot of the difficult women is because there is already so many content creators on the internet that are complaining and moaning about women. And for me, I'm like, we get it. There are women out there that are users and abusers and losers, and that they waited till they were too old to be able to get the men that they want. And they're, single moms that are asking for 6-figure guys. Like, I'm fully aware as a dating coach that all those people exist, right? And so he responded, they're yada, yada, yada. Most modern women teach themselves they're more deserving than 90% of the men. So he goes on and basically complains more and more and more. And so my thing was finding, like, what's your actual solution to the problem? Like, here's my thing, right? all these so-called bad women exist, right? Let's say that's true. Let's say 70% of women out there are complete total crap. Let's say let's go with the theory that could be accurate, right? Why are you going to then spend your time concentrating on that 70% that you don't want? Why are you going to sit there and say, yeah, these women suck because X, Y, and Z, and I think they're all 304s and yada, 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 yada? How is that energy and time allowing you to find the 30% out there that you could actually get with? And see, I found in my life that in my early 20s, when I was concentrating on all the women that I couldn't get, I was running into women that were trash women and I couldn't get, because realistically, those aren't women I need to be with long-term anyway. At the point where I was starting to change my mind and realize, hey, you know what? Like, I could really start focusing more on, okay, in this sea full of so-called trash, what women out there exist that aren't trash, that would treat me better? And I started being able to find more of those women, because what you focus on in life are the things that you're going to attract and get. So these days, when I go out there, it's not that I don't see trash women. It's just my eyes are so open to the good women that are out there that I'm able to pinpoint them out more than the ones that are trash. Because again, what does you complaining about women do to help you get the women you want? It does nothing. And you can't go to a woman and be like, yeah, all women suck, but you're going to be different. She's going to look at you like, but dude, you just trashed a whole sex. Why would I want to get with you? You're going to probably complain about me at some point in the same way. So I tend to stay in the positive realm. I don't want you guys to think this means that I am unrealistic about how women can be. It's just A, I don't deal with those kind of women. And B, I don't think it's worth your time, effort, and energy. If you're on this channel trying to figure out how to get women, then you trying to come back in the comments saying, but women are dogs and blah, 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 blah. You've just now cut your own legs, because now you're going to spend focusing time trying to argue with me about, but these women aren't so great. And I'm like, well, unless you're going to be single or gay, then you got to stop complaining and figure stuff out. I'm sorry. Like, I don't live in the world where I want to complain about things all the time, because it gets you nowhere. So that's to that comment. I had to say to that guy, like, dude, like, what's your solution? He was like, oh, my bad. Like, I didn't think about that. Like, yeah, like, crap or get off the pot, but figure it out. Because at the end of the day, you can find great women. If you're not finding them, that is your fault, because they do exist out here. Anyway, sorry for the rant. Continuing on. Let's see some other comments here. Appreciate the info. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, let's see here. This guy right here. I think I see someone. Oh, yeah, that's another one. Of like, a lot of guys left comments about, like, the whole, I did a video about having an abundant mindset and about, thinking about things differently. And a lot of them were saying things like, oh, we'll get a passport and travel overseas and get those women. And to that, I say that might temporarily work. If you go overseas, you might find a woman that's overly submissive and is willing to bow down to you, yada, yada, yada. That's fantastic and great. Most of you can't afford passports, which leads to point two, which is that even if you could afford the passport and to travel, do you realistically have the lifestyle set up to be able to support the woman? Because if you don't, whether you are here or whether you're overseas, inevitably you're going to run into the same problem, which is, if you start running low on money, can you support her and you? Because those women over there, to be fair, the American dollar and wherever you decide to travel might be able to go a lot farther, but that's only for a certain amount of time. And if you're not able to keep up a certain lifestyle at some point, you're going to have the same problems with them that you have with women over here. So I don't think traveling is the issue, because again, there are women here. I've dated women here that have made more money than me, that have still happily dated me. So money wasn't the issue. It comes down to, like, what's your personality? How do you talk to them? How are you able to treat them? Like, are you being able to treat them lovingly? Or are you just really, like, a lot of guys get insecure when women make more money than them and they want to bring it up and, try to rule fists and stuff like that. But, like, there's other issues that are there besides just these women won't date you. All right. So you got to look at yourself and see, realistically, outside of the money situation, what other reasons could there be that you are not successful with women? Continuing on, let's see. Let's see, rewatching this. Oh yeah, this is one of the ones where they said, like, hey, you're talking too long. Like, again, like, yeah, I've already done the experiment, so it is what it is. Let's see. Old fashioned. Okay, I had a lot of good comments about the one that I did where I talked about first comes dating, then comes baby. Because, I'm old fashioned. So I just don't understand the thing of, like, celebrities these days talking about, oh, well, we got together and now we're going to have a baby. And then, we might get married. We might stay together. We might not. Like, I'm not a fan of that. But, and so somebody commented, yawn, who cares how you grew up? Because I talked about how I grew up in a household where it was like most of the people in my family, it's like they fall in love, they get married, they wait a couple of years, then they have kids, repeat, repeat, repeat. And so this person was like, Yawn, who cares how you grew up? You're not even successful. Doesn't matter what step you take when love is there. And that's not true because the state gets involved with that crap. Like in the moment, because that whole thing of like, doesn't matter what step you take when love is there. So, okay, I think I'm in love with somebody. I meet somebody after 3 or 4 good dates. I'm like, I'm in love. They're thinking they're in love. We hook up. We, I get her pregnant. And then she finds out some stuff about me that she realizes long-term isn't going to gel with her. And I find out some stuff about her that I realize long-term isn't going to gel well. And then we start having fights. And now we're not in love anymore. We got a kid. But love, right? Love was there and it happened. And so we should still, we should be happy with the kid and all this other stuff. And then things get contentious because people, when things break up, I'm telling you, I've seen friends get divorced. I've seen like really bad breakups. Like when that stuff hits, all the love you guys had at one point doesn't matter. All that matters is that now the baby mama's feels some kind of way and doesn't want you to see the kid all the time and wants to fly halfway across the state or wants to make it difficult for you to be able to see the kid in the first place or wants to like hold, well, if you don't give me X amount of money, then you can't see your kid. But love, right? Love made the kid. So no, you need to be dating for a while, minimum 1 or 2 years. And then you need to have some time when you first get married to really figure out how you're going to function as a married couple before kids come into the conversation. Again, that's my opinion. If you choose not to live that way, it is what it is. But why make your life hard if you don't have to, Let's see, continuing on. Let's see here. Okay, so I did a video called Negging Women. It can work, and I talked about in that video the downside of negging. Now, for those of you that are new to the whole manosphere thing, the term negging came about back in the pickup artist days, whereby basically as a guy, you go into a club and you want to hit on a really hot, attractive woman, you throw some sarcastic jabs and insults at her, and it's supposed to take her down from this pedestal of feeling like she's a 10 to feeling like maybe she's like a 6 or a 5, at which point she now sees you as the alpha. You can go in there and get her and all that other stuff. And sad to say, it does work. Like I was never personally a fan of that because I'm like, I can be sarcastic in ways that aren't mean, but there are guys that got results. Like they go in there and start hitting on a 10, and it works because most like highly attractive women are so used to guys being anxious around them and nervous that when a guy comes along and is willing to like insult her subconsciously, it's as if they're saying like, you don't frighten me. Your looks mean nothing to me. I'm still better. And sorry to say, subconsciously, that can work. But the negative to that is you're realistically hitting on a woman's self-esteem, and it's like you're using it as a punching bag. And I just never personally found that funny or fair. So I mentioned that in the video. So this lady responded. She said, truth, caused depression episode, 10 years of anxiety and an eating disorder. Intention to lower anyone's esteem is psychopathic traits. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far necessarily, but I get it. Like that's to her point. Like this woman went through severe depression, anxiety for 10 years because she was being told these negative things by guys in an attempt to try to hit on her because they actually liked her. Like, and this is why I say it too, because I got bullied when I was in middle school in 6th grade. Like a lot of people called me weird and strange and made fun of me for my various like habits and things I like watching on TV. But so from that though, I got a very early lesson in like, you never know what that thing is that you could say to somebody that's going to like drastically change the way they feel about themselves and the impact it's going to have on their self-esteem forever, And why would you want to be responsible for potentially ruining somebody? Like you could have somebody that thought the world of themselves and you come along and say, oh, that crooked nose. And now the rest of their life, they have in their head that somebody thought they had a weird crooked nose and they're trying to get it fixed with all the kinds of surgeries and stuff. Looking like somebody like Little Kim. Little Kim to me, for those of you that are not in your 40s, Little Kim was an artist on Bad Boy that rolled with Notorious B.I.G. and those guys back in the day. And she had a very sexual style about her. And I thought she was pretty attractive. But, women start getting those comments. Oh, you're just kind of whatever. You think you're a little something, so-and-so. And over the years, she's had plastic surgery after plastic surgery after plastic surgery. And now she looks very unrecognizable from her early days. And it's all because people were constantly commenting on her looks and thinking I can just say a thing and it'll be fine because she's a celebrity. But again, you don't know the impact your words are having on other people. So I tend to steer clear of that. And I highly recommend that you do too. I don't think you need to use negging to be able to get women that'll be attracted to you. You can be sarcastic, funny, jovial, and still have a woman be like, yeah, that guy, he's pretty awesome. So just my opinion there. So continuing on, let's see what we got here. I'm really just scrolling up from the bottom from the last ones I have. Let's see. This guy's talking about, okay, yeah, the whole thing about being indifferent, which I talk about a lot on these shows. This guy says, so I did a video called, okay. So I did a video called How Men Claim They're 10s When They're Not. And I compared the thing of like women, like these women saying on these various videos that they're 10s, but objectively as a guy, they're really not 10s to most men, but they think they are. And I said, that's the same as like a guy saying, well, I'm a nice guy. But if you're asking women what that means to them, you could actually not be a nice guy. So this guy left a really nice comment. He said, I think it's important to feel you're worthy and good enough for anyone you want to take your shot with. This takes time and self-confidence, and a positive mindset takes some inner work. However, that doesn't mean you're perfect. Everyone has some type of baggage or something they aren't proud of. It's important to recognize life is an ongoing process, and you're never really exactly where you want to be. There's always room for improvement. If you focus too much on, quote, where you need to be, you can't be present and realize your current self is good enough. And I think that's true. I think that it's an understanding of, yes, you always have work to do on yourself, but also that doesn't mean that from where you're at right now, you can't get results. Like, you know, to the nice guys out there, I think their biggest thing is they think that they're already so nice. And they're not realizing that some of the behaviors that they have could actually either be lessened or taken away in order to really be able to give a woman the impression of like who they really are. And I think the work of getting comfortable with who you actually are and how you really want to present yourself to women is for most guys an ongoing thing. Because early on, when we first start dating, like first of all, when most guys start dating, women have gotten the jump on us. Like by the time we start wanting to put down the video game controllers and start being like, oh crap, there's women around here that are cute. It's like 13, 14, right? Women have been getting convinced to be in a relationship since they were like out the womb, like, oh, her and so be so cute together at like age freaking 2. So they're already studying up on the gracefulness. And it's not to say that women are fully caught up, because I think there's things that women need to learn too, even when they get into their teenage years. They don't have it all figured out, but they have a bit of a head start from the finish line than we do, right? So we get in there thinking, okay, what, these video games aren't cool now? Like, oh, well, she's saying that the way I talk isn't cool, and we just want to change our entire selves to be able to please women, not realizing that women don't actually want that. They want us as ourselves, but we have to get to where we have a version of ourselves that is consumable for the masses. Like, because I hate when guys say, like, I just want to be myself, not realizing that they have work to do on themselves. Because realistically, even the nice guys, you're not going to be a nice guy all the time. Like, women need to see the side of you that gets angry, that gets a little upset, because they want to know at what level that is, so they can determine if they're going to like get completely beat or shot down by you if you get angry, or if it's just one of those things where you kind of like, you know, huff and puff, or just kind of tell them sternly like, hey, don't do that anymore. So when you don't do those kind of things, then women won't date you. So you have to get into the idea of like, yes, it's cool to be gentlemanly to a woman, but you have to know how to stand your ground. You have to know how to be able to say, hey, I like this thing over here and you don't. Well, that's too bad. I'm still going to do it. And if you don't like it, tough crap. And understand that she's going to be fine with that. And that takes time, because men in the beginning are really trying not to face rejection like that. And anytime we say no to a woman, we're thinking we're going to risk some huge rejection. And you have to get to a point where you don't care about the rejection as much as you care about you standing on the principles you set for yourself. And that's going to be the thing that really makes women want to admire you and stay with you. Continuing on, like I said, if you guys have any questions in the chat that you'd like to ask me, I'll be happy to answer them on here. If you have a deeper issue you want to talk about, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and we can talk about that on a one-on-one coaching call. All right. This is the question I got about attachment styles, and I'm gonna get into that in a longer video. So this person says here, I did a video where I said, does her pulling away mean she wants you to pursue harder? And I think I talked about in that video basically how her a lot of times guys think, well, she's pulling away, I need to go out with her more with more gusto, and that usually actually tends to chase most women away. Now keep in mind, the advice that I give is not absolute. All right. So there's always outliers, but I want you guys to get advice that's based on the probability. And there's a higher probability that if a woman's pulling away and you try to double up your efforts to chase her, she's probably going to leave. But with that said, this guy left a comment. He said, 100% sure this woman wanted me to pursue harder because I found out a few months later. I didn't care though. She was making things unnecessarily difficult. She's just an insecure narcissist. So this points to the fact that yes, there are some women out there that will say, well, I want a guy to fight for me, and I want him to show that he's really going to do his best to try to get me. And those women will play the game of, I'm going to pull away from this guy to see if he comes after me. And I had a girl try this where I was dating her for a while. We got into a little tiff, and then she sent me this message saying, I think we should break up because I don't think things are going well. And at the time, I was kind of almost over her anyway. So my response was just like, okay. Turn over, went back to bed. She texted me a few days later saying she wants to meet up for lunch to be able to talk to me in person. And that's when she told me, well, the reason I sent that text was because I wanted to talk to you about some stuff that I was unhappy with in our relationship. And I thought by sending you that text, you would respond with, well, oh no, let's not break up. Let's talk about it. And I said to her, when we first started dating, I said, I don't play those kind of games. Like, if you have something to talk to me about, you could just talk to me about it. You don't have to be like, I'm going to try to play the game of pulling away to make him want to talk to me. Like, so some women do that because honestly, they themselves don't know how to approach a guy and be able to be open with him and talk to him about what she's feeling. And also some women have the thing of like, I just want to see my man work extra hard to get me. And I don't date those kind of women. Like, my thought is that the world is already going to throw enough hard stuff at you. To have people in the relationship purposely trying to do things to make it harder is a huge red flag. So at the point that happens, I'm out, because I grew up in a family where we could sit down and talk about stuff and be cordial and be able to disagree, but still be able to hear each other and come to an understanding. Now, as I've gotten older, I've realized that not most people didn't come from that kind of family. So whereas I grew up in a family where we could sit down and talk about stuff, I'm also aware that both men and women come from situations where yelling, fighting, blame, as Kevin would always say, sign language, same, insults, guilt, and the need to be right was the prevalent thing in an argument. I didn't grow up like that. So as I've gotten older, I've realized there are a lot of women out here that actually don't have good social skills when it comes to fights. Like, I know we always say, well, women are more emotionally mature and they're all about conversation. Here's a nugget for you guys, right? Just because a woman's communicating with you doesn't mean she's a good communicator. Because if she's just trying to talk to hear herself talk and she's talking over you and you're trying to gently explain to her your side of things, and her response is like, well, that's not a thing, and you're being misogynistic and X, Y, and Z, then guess what? She's talking, but she's a bad communicator. And you need to suss out early on if a woman has like a really bad communication style. So I actually recommend early on not trying to start a fight. Let's say like a small tiff comes up about something, right? Don't run from that tiff. Like, stay in that tiff and actually like see where this goes to see how she fights, because you need to know how she fights. You need to know how she communicates with you when she's not getting her way or when you're not agreeing with her on some point. If she's going to be able to talk with you and sit down and talk about it and come to an understanding, fantastic, because fights are going to happen in relationships, but they don't have to be tumultuous fights. They can be fights where you sit down and come to an understanding and hear each other. But you might get into a fight with her where she's just like, and I've dated plenty of women where when we get into like some serious nitty gritties, it's like overtalk. Oh, well, I'm going to say my part. Okay. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes on end. Okay. Now you say your part. And then I start talking for like 10 seconds. Well, no, that's not a thing because blah, blah, blah. And then they start talking again. And it's all about hearing their emotions and hearing what they have to say about it and how this is not a thing. And it's going to cause you turmoil, man. So get those fights in early if you can, because you really need to figure out early on if she's going to be the kind of person that is going to be in this fight to try to come to an understanding or be in the fight to win. And anytime you have a partner that's in a fight to win, you both lose. So that's my little nugget for the day. Continuing on. Let's see here. Pull away. Good video. Blah, 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 blah. Praise. I love all you guys that like my videos and say I'm doing a good job and appreciate the insights. Because again, I really try to come to this for you guys that are watching from the understanding that like, I don't think men or women necessarily think bad or good. They just think different. And I think men get very frustrated at the way women think about things because we just don't understand. And understanding women, it really is like learning a second language. And so in that, and they're the other half of the population. So you got a choice to make. Do you get mad at the other side of the population for communicating the way they do? Or do you say, I'm going to learn this language? I just decided to learn the language because I didn't want to be single my whole life, you know? I'll be right back. I got to get some water because I am thirsty as heck. Yes, I'll keep a glass of water near me. Ooh. All right. I sound like an old man now. Delicious. All right. Continuing on here. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I've answered that in the full video. Okay, let's see. You lost me on this one. Okay, here's one. So this person left the comments, and their comment was under the video that I did called Sarcasm Overkill for Men. A woman shares why it kills interest. And I talked about that in the video about why being overly sarcastic causes a woman to lose interest, right? So I gave some advice in that video. This person said, you lost me about 6 minutes in on this one when it became generic. Women don't like men being sarcastic all the time or when having an actual argument. No one would. In fact, you may replace it with any other character trait and it still makes sense. Please be specific when analyzing a specific detail. So here's what I commented back, and I'm just going to paraphrase basically, is that for some of the videos that I do, the advice is purposefully generic and simple. Because as my mom used to say, what does my mom used to always say? My mom used to always say, common sense isn't always common. And what that means is that just because I know a thing and the world at large should know a thing, doesn't mean that the world at large knows an actual thing. And a lot of men that are coming to my channel are having issues in relationships or just in their dating world, and they're not understanding why these things are problems. So for a video like this, where I talk about how being overly sarcastic could be causing women to lose interest, you would think that's a simple thing to know, right? In my late teens and early 20s, I was very sarcastic, and not in a mean way, but like I could literally take any sentence somebody said and make it a joke or make it a sarcastic comment. Like I can still do this to this day, but I don't because when I moved out to California and I was around some of my guy friends, they got kind of like tired of me being jokey all the time. It's like, dude, like you gotta be jokey like all the time. And I started to realize that yes, women want men to be like funny and humorous, but they also want a guy that can segue out of that into more serious conversations, and that it's okay to have those conversations, and that women aren't going to be, losing interest because you decided to not be so jokey and be serious, right? But that was a lesson that took me like 3 to 5 years to learn, right? But again, I'm in my 40s, that's a common thing. That's a very generic piece of advice. But for somebody that's 20, 21, and is constantly failing with women, and then you ask them, well, what's your conversations like with women when you go out on dates? And they're saying like, oh, I was jokey, and she said this thing, and I made this sarcastic comment, and then she said this thing, so I made another sarcastic comment, and then I did a neg on her over here, and this is that. They don't understand that simple comment that they're making, or those sarcastic things they're saying that they should understand don't need to be said all the time, is not an understanding they currently have. So because my audience is wide, it's like ranges right now from like, I'd say realistically like 23 to about like 45 or so, right? So in the span of that audience frame, right, there are people that are still learning the basics of dating. I mean, like a 24-year-old to a 45-year-old who's never had a girlfriend, right? And they might not understand that simple behavior is causing a lot of their problems. So that's why I occasionally make these very generic episodes of my show, because like I said, common sense isn't always common, and you never know who doesn't have a certain knowledge pool that could actually help them in the dating world if they only had that little nugget. So that's why I make those kind of videos from time to time. Let's see, continuing on. Said doesn't like anymore, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Okay, that's a website question. Oh yeah, this guy was happy. This guy basically left a comment saying it was cool for you to make a whole video about my comment. Yeah, that's what I tell you guys. Like, if you guys leave comments under my videos, I read all the comments. Like, I go to the comment section every day in my YouTube, the back end of my YouTube channel, and I go through all the comments and say, okay, what can be made into a show? What question could I answer? And I try to answer those in the order that they're sent to me or the order that they're put in comments. Now, like I said, if you guys have bigger issues that you're dealing with, this is why I have coaching programs, why I have one-on-one coaching calls that you can get at the website. Because if your situation requires more immediate attention, the reality is, because I have a system where I go in order of when I got the comments, it might be a few days or a few weeks before I get to your issue. And by that time, you may have wanted to like, had a question about what's my next move for this person. Should I talk to them? They're saying this thing. What should I say? And I try to keep it fair. The people that are paying me to like do one-on-one coaching, they get first priority and they get the deeper advice like right away. So I do deep dives on the videos, obviously, but if you need a more deep dive, like in a more, timely manner, get the one-on-one coaching. And I've had a lot of people say that, and I'm quoting somebody that said, like, going to me was more effective than going to a therapist. And there's plenty of biases of things of why that would be and why therapists would say certain things over other things that would be actually helpful, but I don't want to get into that. So speaking of that, this person here, let me get into the water. Hold on a second. So this person here left a message. I did a video, which, to be fair, wasn't one of my more popular videos, but I still thought it was worth putting out. But I did a video called 5 Reasons to Avoid Dating Women with Depression. Because as a person that has dated a couple of women that had depression, no matter how well-meaning they are and how well-meaning I am to try to see to it that I'm not rocking the boat too much, it's just there's a lot of issues that come up with the person that has depression. And as a guy, you have to decide how much energy and effort do you want to put towards that part of the relationship versus dating somebody that doesn't have those issues, and you can concentrate on other parts of the relationship that are going to be as important to get right, So anyway, this person said, as a mental health professional, I have to say the fact that you made this video without at least fundamental understanding of depression and the nuance the discussion deserves is actually awful. I think it's fair to make suggestions as to what people should consider before dating someone with a mental health issue, which would be more beneficial if you had a better understanding of it and the distinction between managed and non-managed illness. But you double down and still say you wouldn't date someone with depression even if they were on top of it. All the reasons you outlined apply to men too, which I hate that. I hate when women come on here and say, but men do that too. I'm like, ladies, I'm very aware that men do some of the same things you guys do, but this is a men's channel where I'm helping men. So I wouldn't say to a man, hey, check out these women with these things. And by the way, you do it too. That makes no sense. But even with that, I mentioned in my video, by the way, guy, if you're going through depressive episodes, get that fixed as best you can, because it's not fair to women that are going to come to you and want to date you if you haven't gotten a good portion of that handled in some way, whether it's with medicine, therapy, whatever you got to do, But I find that a lot of times, honestly, this is just a semi-side rant, right? Is that I find that women more often than men will do that. Like if somebody comes to a guy and says, hey, so women are saying, you need to do X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. Most men will be like, whatever I got to do to get the woman. Whatever I got to do, because I'm not going to have a lot of shots at this. So even if I don't want to hear it, whatever the news is that they want, I'll figure out, or I'll be frustrated by it, but I'll still acquiesce to it or whatever, like that, right? You tell women that, and they'll be like, but men also, men need to do their part, and blah, 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 blah. And it gets so defensive. And I can't figure out for the life of me why that still happens, given that there's a bunch of YouTube channels now that talk about, hey, women, we know as men that we have our part to do, but also you have your part. And that goes to the whole comments about accountability. I think people in general don't like being held accountable, but women seem to take it especially hard. And I think that has to do with like some kind of perfection complex, or not want to be seen as less than perfect, or feel like they're being judged in some way if somebody calls them out on some stuff. Like, I don't know what all that's about, but I don't like to do a lot of videos on that, because I think, again, there's already spaces on YouTube that are talking about that. But yeah, ladies, like when I'm talking to men because they're trying to date women. So I'm going to say, hey, if women are like this is how you should react. I'm aware that men also act this ways too. This isn't what that channel's for. So anyway, she said all that stuff. And I said, basically, look, I said, it's not that I am being down on people that have depression. I just know you can have empathy for a situation and still know that it's going to be a tough situation to navigate. So I have sympathy and empathy for people that have depression. I've had people in my family that have depression. I get it on the level of being able to see it, and I've interacted with it. All right. That does not take away the logistics of, and now if you're dating that person, you now have to deal with it. And do you want to deal with it? Do you want to be helping them refill pills, going to doctor's appointments? Do you want to have to be there when they're freaking out or suddenly having random cry spells? Like, if you want to put your energy in the relationship towards that stuff, then you can go ahead and do it. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying I don't want to spend my energy doing that, because like I said earlier, relationships are hard enough and the world's already going to throw a bunch of stuff at you. The less trouble your partner can put you through when they, at their baseline, when they come into a relationship, it's going to be easier in the long run, because you're going to have to come up against stuff anyway. Her having depression, again, this is not trying to down people that have depression, but it's saying it's the same thing like dating a single mom. Like single moms aren't bad people, but they're coming with baggage that you have to decide if that's baggage you want to handle. Now, if you're a guy that wants to handle a person that has depression, then I'm not going to say don't do that. But I'm not going to be surprised also if you come to me later and say, oh man, she was crying today. Or, oh my gosh, she just suddenly like flipped out on me, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, yeah, that's what you signed up for. You got to know as a guy what you're signing up for because you can't complain about it later. Anyway, continuing on. Let's see. So this goes back to, I've had a few women in my comments now that disagreed with what I was saying. And rather than saying, hey, I disagree and here's why, they'll say things like, you're ugly. Well, you couldn't attract a single mom anyway. Again, shame, insults, guilt, they need to be right. I don't have a problem with anybody disagreeing with anything that I say. They could think I'm the wrong person in the world. I will take it. I will talk to you about it. If we don't end up agreeing at the end of the day, you have a right to think what you want to think. But why women automatically go to, oh, but you're ugly. Oh, you're disgusting anyway, blah, 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 blah. That just shows that they've lost the argument to me. Because I'm like, I don't have an ego about what people think I look like. I mean, I'm 41. I got wrinkles in my forehead here. I got stuff here. Like, I'm aware of how I look. I look at myself every day. How I judge myself is different from how other people will judge me. I think I look pretty decent. I wouldn't say I'm a 10. I'm realistic in my judgment of myself. But all that to say, you can't win an argument by just saying you're ugly or you're stupid. Like that's not going to affect me. And it just shows that you don't have the way to logically think about something and put it out there in a way that says, hey, I disagree and here's why, you know? Anyway, so before we go on with the comments, we have a comment in the chat. Always happy to answer comments in the chat. So this guy has a bit of a situation. He says, so I sent, let me get a drink of water, 1 second. All right. So this guy left a comment and he says, so I sent my friend a picture of me with cats and said, I'm on a date with cats. So she said, best date. Then I said, a date with Celia might be better. I assume Celia is the girl's name. A date with Celia might be better, but cats are pretty great too. She then said, you know what's better? A date with Celia and cats. So I said, then we'll be on a double date. What are the chances she thought I was joking and she wasn't hinting she wanted to date? Oh, I'd love to know how old you are, guy, but yeah. I'll put it to you like this. Women are the queens at hinting at things. And oftentimes they're not going to come out and directly say a thing. But if you're in a joking situation where you've thrown something out there and they like you, they will respond to it in a way that keeps it at a level where in case you're joking, she's also joking. But if you're serious, she's down. So you said a solid date with Celia might be better, but cats are pretty great too. And she responded, you know what's better? A date with Celia and cats. So what she's saying is, hey, when is that date with me and the cats and you happening? Again, this is an example of like one-on-one stuff. But like, yeah. So the fact that she's responded to your joke, because here's the thing. If she was not on some level interested, right? You would have said the joke, a date with Celia might be better, but cats are pretty great too. One or two things would have happened. You either would have had the response, which is no response, where she suddenly goes ghost and doesn't talk to you for a few hours and then comes back later in the day and is like, oh, great day, isn't it? Blah, blah. And she'd have completely like changed the subject, right? Or the other thing that would have happened is you would have said, a date with Celia might be better, but cats are pretty great too. And then she would have said like, LOL, you're so silly. And then change the subject matter, right? So the fact that she didn't change the subject matter, the fact that she didn't delay or suddenly go ghosting you in this conversation means that she's open to the idea. And like, now you might be thinking to yourself, but how can you be 100% sure? And the answer is this, is that I'm not. Anytime I'm interested in asking out a woman, I am never 100% sure that she say yes. I go on based on the tone of this conversation, what's the probability? And then I go for it. So in this case, if I were a betting man, I'd say the probability that if you asked her on a date and she would say yes, the probability I'd put it like a decent 75%. It's just solely based on her flirtatiously responding back to you, you know what's better? A date with Celia and cats. Because that's her being jokey. She's taking what you said as a flirtatious thing. And the fact that she's flirting back, that means there's a higher probability that she's interested enough to say yes. Now, what you don't want to do is make the mistake most guys make, which is because she's flirting back like this, you don't want to assume that she's now 100% interested and she's totally down to be the girlfriend. Everything in dating is steps, right? So this step was the flirtation step. You guys flirted, you threw a little flirty thing out there, and she responded with a very, very positively great answer, right? So now that just means there's a level of interest, all right? From now on, all we now focus on is how do we build that interest and how do we engage to see where her interest is at anywhere in the cycle, right? So the next thing would be asking for a date. Something simple like, hey, well, we can make that happen. Like, let's say you and me meet up, this coming Tuesday or Wednesday and take the cats for a walk. Or, well, yeah, we could definitely meet the cats, but like, you know what? I think we should make sure that we're cool first before I introduce you to the cats. LOL. Why don't we meet up at Tuesday and talk about it? Simple. You're not trying to tell her all your feelings for her. You're not trying to say, and I love you so much, and this is going to be great. And I'm going to tell everybody simple stuff. Just simple. Hey, you know what? You want to meet up? We can make it happen. Let's go. And then you go on the date. And then banter. And I go over the extensive listing of the way that a dating relationship should work in my full program, the Introvert Dating Success Coaching Academy, which you can also check out under the Coaching Academy and on the front page of the website. But you can also get the free dating checklist, which walks you through the first 3 months of dating, what you need to be doing during the first 3 months to be able to actually go from dating a girl to solidifying her feelings to be in a relationship. Like, you can get that for free right now by going to the website and getting the free PDF. All right. So check that out. But yeah, she's doing great. Her response was a fantastic reaction. So I'm glad you got that. And by all means, keep me updated on how that goes. All right. All right. Continuing on back to the list here. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Spend a friend zone, banging, blah, blah, blah. Dumper simple. Okay, yeah, whatever. Let's see. Okay. So this was an interesting situation. So I did a video called The Logical Reasons Women Lose Interest When You, quote, do too much for them, which I talked a little bit about on this live also. So this guy left a comment, and then I asked the question, and then he left another comment, which gave me more clarification. So he said, what if she's telling me all this stuff on her own about the future and all? I should probably also say we've known each other for almost 12 years now and dated most of it off and on. So far, I've just been kind of matching her, sort of, and basically only going to see her when she asks. He says almost every day I've been off. She will hint that she wants me to come see her, but she won't usually directly say she wants to see me or wants me to come see her for some reason. Message frequency has dropped a little right now, but still the same topics and whatnot. It's weird because we click super well and she's always excited to see me. But then after a while, it's like she gets nervous and won't make eye contact sometimes, but still smiles when she sees me. Does it sound like maybe she's just scared of her feelings or something? It's sort of a complicated situation, but I thought I'd ask. I've been waiting until she texts me to talk to her, and she keeps wanting me to come see her at work, since that's basically the only time she gets to, but kind of don't want to just chill there. So I've been slowly cutting down on the boat. So anyway, he kept mentioning like seeing this woman at work. And I'm like, why aren't they going out on dates? So I asked him to clarify. I said, just need clarification. I don't understand the sentence. She keeps wanting me to come see her at work, since that's basically the only time she gets to. So that's when he expanded. He said, it's complicated, but essentially we aren't dating. I was just trying to gauge feelings because she started showing them. But technically, she is still trapped in an abusive relationship and hasn't left because she is afraid of him trying to take the kids. So she really can't see me. She really can't see me usually except at work or something. I know not exactly a good thing probably, but like I said, we've known each other 12 years almost. We just talk and hang out occasionally, but she started showing signs again and said she had a lot of feelings, but I know in the past she does this almost pull away thing, but yet she's still usually the one asking to see me. I'm just usually okay with it since I'm available, usually when I'm not working. She also says everything is fine when I ask. Almost seems like she just gets nervous, but she's still happy to see us. It's just so confusing. All right. So as a general rule, I'm like this. If the person you like is still in a relationship, I don't give you advice because I'm not trying to break up relationships. you might have a justification for, but she's not happy. She's afraid of this guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line is she is still in a relationship and she's not leaving that relationship for you. She's got kids with the guy. For better or for worse, she's emotionally attached to the guy, and you wasting your time on somebody that's with somebody is asinine when there are a plethora of single women that are out here ready to date. So I don't give advice to guys like that because I'm not trying to help people cheat on people with other people or trying to get you in a situation where you suppose I help and say, hey, here's how you can get this woman. And then you get her. She has a violent ex that then comes by and knocks you off and knocks her off. And now I got to feel responsible because I helped. I don't think so. So I say this to say you guys in general, do not, if you are trying to get a woman that has somebody, or if you have somebody, you're trying to cheat on who you're with for somebody else, do not ask me for help because I'm not trying to help with those kind of situations. Continuing on. Okay. This person said, hey, Harry, I got a date with a woman. The date went good. I didn't text her since 5 days. Still no response. Should I just move on or still wait? So this is an example of somebody that is confusing the message I put out there. So my message to you guys generally this is that on average, it takes a woman 2 to 3 months to solidify her feelings, right? And so when you go on those first few dates, I say you go on a date, show her the best time, and then you wait a minimum of 4 days before you call her for another date. And what we do is like, we're trying to see if during that time, if she's highly interested by gauging if she'll hit you up first. And sometimes women will do that. I've had it where I show a woman a good time on a date and then I'm trying to wait 4 days. And then on day like 2, I get a text. Hey, Harry, how you doing? I was thinking we can go to the beach today. Hey, Harry, just want to see how you're doing. I'm thinking about you, yada, yada, yada. And those are all great. But I also say in my advice, if by day 4, she has not contacted you, that's totally fine. It's to be expected. You're just trying to wait to make sure that you're giving her time to think about you and miss you or whatever. So that way, when you ask for that second date, she'll say yes to it. So all we're really focused about is getting to day 4 or 5 before you ask her for that second date, right? But what this guy is saying is like, I waited 5 days and she didn't hit me up. So is that it? You're not listening to what I said. What I said was you're waiting a minimum of 4 days and then you contact her. There are some women out there that are A, traditional, and B, like me, not very tech savvy. They don't like to text. So they're going to be like, okay, well, I want to see the guy again, but I'm going to be the woman that's like, I'm not going to be that woman that's needy and trying to, contact him all the time. I assume if he wants to see me again, he'll hit me up. And that's why you wait until day 4 or 5, because we're saying to you, guy, you need to apply patience to your game and not be so nervous that, oh my God, it's only been 6 hours since the date. I need to text her. Like the purpose is to get you out of that headspace. It's to get you out of the headspace of thinking you got to be contacting women all the time and texting her nonstop in order for her to build interest. Because as I've said in the show before, I have women friends and women that I've dated that have been like, yeah, these guys were all over me. They were texting me nonstop about a bunch of bull crap I didn't care about while I was working, while I was with friends. They were getting all like needy on their text. And so they don't want that. But a woman that's starting to build interest in you will be open to you texting her and will be open to saying yes to dates when you ask her. So yeah, if it's been 4 or 5 days, you should have already hit her back up to ask for a second date. You should not be waiting for her to text you because that's only one way to gauge interest. The ultimate way that you gauge interest with a woman to know if she's interested is this. On day 4 or 5, you say, hey, let's go on another date. And she says, yes. That's it. You're just waiting. You're just, the way you gauge her interest is that she's going to keep saying yes to dates. You take her out on date number 2, have a good time, go home, you wait, you hit her up again for a 3rd date. She says yes. And she keeps saying yes. And then you go on a date, you kiss her, and then you go home, you wait another time, you hit her up again. She says yes. That means she likes you, the dates, and the kiss. Bravo. And that's how you get the gauge of interest. So all you guys that are trying to use texting as a way to fully gauge your interest, her texting you between dates is one measure of being able to read that she's growing her interest. But again, there are women out here that aren't going to be texting all the time, that are from the old school of like, I want the man to hit me up. And you know what? I like those women a lot better because it means I ain't got to be on my phone all the time. As an introvert, I don't want to be like, I'm having alone time now, but I got to text this girl that I'm seeing. So yeah, recognize that again, you got to really listen to like I say things very purposefully and I say things in a manner in which I want them to be gotten. So I say, you wait 4 to 5 days before you contact her. You do that to see if you're going to gauge interest, to see if you can gauge her interest by her possibly texting you. But if she doesn't, you still ask her for the date after 4 or 5 days. So hopefully that clarifies that for you guys. All right. Continuing. Let's see. We got another person here. Oh boy. I get this traditional, this is another comment I typically get, which is like, I'll say, I try to explain on this show about women's mindset. You know, I'm not a woman, so I don't want people to think, you're not a woman, so blah, blah, blah. I've extensively studied, been around, grew up around, talked to, dated women to get a general idea of how they're thinking and feeling about things. And then I try to convey them to you guys, because if we're saying that learning women is like a second language, I know how to speak that language. So I'm coming to you guys saying, hey, so the women over here said this or did this, and I'm going to translate to you guys what this action is. And what a lot of men in the comments will say is, but they're playing games. And I'm trying to say, like, no, they speak a different language, but that's game playing. That'll be like me, Harry, that speaks English, going to Mexico and then being mad that everybody there speaks Spanish and saying they're playing games with me. They don't want me to understand them. It's like, no, I went over to where they're at and they speak a different language. I can either decide to learn it, get it translated, or be mad the whole time. So it's the same with women. We think, we speak, we act differently, especially like men amongst themselves have one way of speaking and being, and women amongst themselves have their way of speaking and being. And then you have group A, man, group B, women coming together to try to talk, and neither person wants to understand the other person. Both people want to say, men are crazy, women are crazy. They're playing games, they're playing games. And it's really just like, no, you just don't fundamentally understand how the other side functions, why they communicate the way they do, why men speak so matter-of-factly, why women oftentimes speak more emotionally about things. Like, these are important things that you need to know if you want to be in a long-term relationship with a woman. Now, if you want to get with a dude, hey, I've heard gay dudes have a higher rate of staying together than lesbians do and straight couples do. But if you're not trying to do that, then you got to learn how women speak, because more often than not, they're not playing games. Not to say there aren't women out there that aren't playing games and that won't use you, etc. But again, on this side of things, I like to keep it positive. I like you to concentrate on the women that actually are good women out there. And those good women are still going to speak like women. You still got to learn that second language to get along with even the good ones. Continuing on. Let's see. Let's see. That was let's see. Great show. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's see here. Again, guys, I'm taking questions. Probably got a few more comments to go through. So, yeah, any comments you guys have that you want to ask questions on, now is a great time. It can be about your situation, about dating in general. I'm happy to answer them. Let's see. We just want to hear to see if we get back to not really. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this one. So this guy had a situation, and then this other guy commented on it, and then I made a video about his comment, and then the first guy gave more context. So I'll go through all that. So this is pretty interesting, all right? So he left a comment under my video, 5 ways to pass the pull away test, and he said, excellent advice, thank you. I met this girl, and for the first time, I wasn't the one who approached, but she did. Been speaking for 2 weeks now, and I'm trying to focus on taking it slow, because I tend to rush things, and I tend to get the hint from girls by them saying, quote, let's not rush things. So I am mindful of this, and I'm trying to change this. I love the advice in this video. I feel it was made for me. So this other guy said, let's not rush into things means she's not interested and wants you to do the monkey dance for longer. So I made a video where I talked about what let's not rush things generally means, right? Because there are women that say that sometimes are trying to lead a guy on and are trying to, like, you know, gently let him go. But I find also there have been plenty of women out there that'll say, let's not rush things because the guy's pushing things too fast. Like, they go on 2 dates and he's ready to, like, wife her up or ready to show her girlfriend benefits, at which point the woman's like, I'm starting to like the guy. I'm getting to know him, but this is a lot too soon. Hey, let's not rush things. And most guys take it as like, she's trying to dump me. So I just made that video saying that that's a generality and that that's not always the case, that there are plenty of women that have liked guys that started doing too much too soon. And then when they say, hey, let's slow it down a bit, the man gets all butthurt and thinking that she's going to dump him. And that's not what she was trying to do. All right. But even with that, that's not always the case. Sometimes women are like trying to push it to the side. So I made my video though. And then this guy came back and was talking to the other guy and said, I'm replying because I no longer speak with that woman. Ever since your reply, the guy's reply about, monkey dancing and yada, yada, yada. Ever since your reply, I've been watching her instead of listening to her words. I noticed we texted a lot or spoke on the phone a lot, but when it came down to meeting up, she always had an excuse for why she couldn't. So I stopped asking her and I began to kind of ignore her. Until last night, I barely paid her any attention when she called or texted me. The following morning, today, she texted me trying to catch my attention. She sounded a bit desperate. I texted her back, I can't text now, I am jogging. She texted back sounding frustrated. 3 hours later, I text her that I am home and that she could call me. She called me right away while she was at work. About 2 minutes into our conversation, she began speaking to another coworker about how excited she was for the flowers and chocolates she received. She claimed she thought they were for me. Yet she kept on rubbing it in my face, the nice flowers and chocolates. She even texted me a photo of the items. I acted cool and I simply told her to save me some chocolate and complimented the gifts. I told her that was very thoughtful of whoever sent you those flowers and chocolates. This guy's awesome. After I texted her this, she became furious and told me they should have been from you. And not even a second later, she called. I didn't pick up. After the call, she texted me a very ugly message. I simply deleted it. I guess she was trying to use me to buy her things and not give anything in return. That's my impression. So the question is this. So does this now take away from the video that I made where I said, just because a woman says, let's not rush things, it doesn't mean that she's always trying to push back? The answer is no. My video still stands. But what his comment and his situation illustrates is why you guys need to not rush into situations. Because again, like I say, it takes a woman 2 to 3 months to solidify her feelings, because during that time, she's doing her due diligence. I think the problem most men have is they fall very quickly and they forego doing their due diligence. So because this guy was able to be patient and take his time and not rush it, he was able to start to see that she was really like in this for other things. Like I've dated a woman before, or I went on a couple of dates with a woman where on our second date, we were at dinner. She invited me out to dinner. And then we get there and she's ordering the steak and the shrimp and the biggest meal there and wants me to pay for it. And then during our meal, she's saying stuff like, oh man, my phone bill is going to be late this month. I don't know, I'm going to pay my phone bill. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, there's this outfit I want to get, but I don't know if I can afford it. Oh my God. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, so let me just analyze this right now from a analytical perspective. She's asking me to spend money on this dinner right now that costs a lot of money. And then she's already mentioning stuff in the future she wants me to pay for. This is not a good dating candidate. Now, imagine if after our first date, I was already in love, already ready to bow down to her and give her anything she wanted. I'd have been out a dinner money plus phone bill money and clothing money, and then anything else you would have asked for in the future. So this is why when you apply patience to your game, when you're able to be objective and say, hey, she's got a pretty hot bod and she seems nice, but let me slow this down and really actually take time to analyze her, that you can find hiccups like this where you're like, oh, I found it early, great, versus being blindsided because you're having your blinders on and not seeing what's actually going on. And then when this stuff happens, you're not able to take note of it and do what this guy did, which is get rid of her, block her altogether. All right. So this doesn't take away from what I said, but kudos to this guy for giving an example of when you apply patience to your game, you're able to be more objective and really see what the woman is actually about and bypassing her looks to see if you want to really deal with this person on a day-to-day basis. And in this case, clearly she wasn't a good candidate for that. And so he rightfully got rid of her. Let's see. This is a simple question. So I did a video called I Matched Her Pull Away. Now she's asking why pull away, which has also become a very popular video. And this guy asked a very simple question. He says, what happens if it goes completely cold? And this is a question that only a person that doesn't have a lot of skin in the dating game or has limited options would ask, because the simple answer that I left was like, then it's over. If you're reaching out to her, she's not responding, and then she reaches out to you and you're not responding, it's done. Like there's nothing else to do. But this speaks to, especially any women that are watching this really speaks to how desperate men are, that they could have all these red flags being thrown at them and they'll still say, but would I still have a shot at making it work? Because men typically don't have as many options as women do coming to them on a regular basis. Now, obviously with my materials, you'll become a more confident dater. I have found as you become more confident, less anxious, as you start to develop a plan of action for your dating life, because dating for men, I'm sorry to say, it can't be happenstance. It can't just be like, I met her and things just magically happened. You're going to better succeed if you go in with a plan of how you're going to date, what dates you're going to take them on, how the kind of topics you're going to talk about, how you're going to pace out your dating. All these things are things you need to have a plan of in order to most effectively be a great dater. All right. And so as you build and develop that stuff, then you'll be able to attract more women, and if you don't have those things, you're going to forever wallow and not be able to have the full dating life that you're able to get. Where I'm at right now, like, I don't ever go into like my dating situation, because I believe ultimately like your dating situation is more important than whatever I have going on. But I have found that as I've gotten older, that like I'll just go to things not thinking about trying to get women at all, and inevitably women will be attracted to me without me having to put so much effort in. That's because they can see I have a mission about myself. They can see that I have about my goals, about my dreams, that I'm, very easy and not anxious in conversations. And that's what women want, because the women, that looks like a guy that is a genuine guy, that's being his genuine self, that he's confident enough to know that he is the guy that he needs to be in this space and that he's able to command it. And if you want to become that kind of guy, I'd be so happy to help you out with that. You can sign up for a one-on-one coaching call or sign up for the Introvert Dating Success Coaching Academy. And either one of those things, we can really dive deep into the work that it needs to be done to get you to that part. All right. But anyway, enough of me advertising myself. Just wanted to point that out. But yeah, so those kind of questions are like simple questions, but as you become more confident of dater, you'll stop asking those questions because you won't need to, because you'll recognize that girls recognize that you're the hot stuff. Let's see. Let's see this guy here. Okay, Lord. Okay, I want to do that. That was the ugly comment. Okay, let's see. And like I said, guys, if you guys have any questions you want to ask me personally, now's a good time, because I charge a lot of money now to be talked to. So if you want some free advice on this chat, now's the time to ask it. Let's see here. Oh man. Let's see. I think knowing the content of the situation is important. Okay, I'll kind of, of course, we'll answer that earlier. Oh, I like that comment. Let's see. Where'd it go? Okay. Okay. So this is another comment that was left under the 5 ways to pass a pull away test one. He says, I've been studying pickup artists, social dynamics, and men's dating strategies for over a decade. I think you articulate and thoroughly explain pull away better than any other coach I've come across. Thank you. He says, not reacting or second messaging is something I've really been working on lately. I've also been trying out waiting twice as long to text back when they pull away. So if she makes me wait 5 hours, I'll make her wait 10 hours, etc. Or I'll make her wait 2 days even sometimes. It's amazing how fast they respond. And this goes to another part of the pull away test, actually, which is that, let's say a woman's doing a pull away test. And most of the time, as I said in that video, when they're doing a pull away test, it's not that they're initially purposely trying to do it. It's just they're getting this feeling of like, this guy's maybe around a little bit too much, or she might be basing it off of other guys in the past. Like, let's say you guys are texting back and forth every day. She might have had an experience with a guy where it was like, okay, in my past, when there was a guy that was texting me every day, eventually it got to be too much, or he started being jealous or over demanding of my time. And so I don't want this to be the same situation. So it's starting to feel like that. I got to stop texting for a little bit, right? Okay. So when you do that, the easiest way to pass her test is like do what this guy does. Like if you ask her a question and she takes like 5 hours to answer back, then don't answer her back right away, because it's going to make her feel like, oh, he was just waiting for me to text because he's needy. No, 5 hours, you give 10 hours. She makes you wait a day, you make her wait 2 days. And one, that'll give her the confirmation that, okay, this guy's not being needy, but also, oh crap, he waited longer than I did. Why? Why was he waiting longer than I did? Was he seeing other people? Does he have other options? Like, because a guy that's able to wait longer than I could clearly must have other options. Are those other options going to now get in the way of me and him being a thing? You know what? Let me stop the bull crap and text him back right away. So again, and I say this all the time, guys, some of this stuff sounds really, really dumb, but this goes back to men and women and how they communicate differently with each other and stuff like that, right? So if she's communicating to you, this might be a little bit too much. You trying to rush it and say, no, it's not too much, is going to make her feel like it's too much. Versus speaking her language, she had to wait. So now you know what? It's probably best if you wait, and you'll find that oftentimes women will just suddenly drop the whole facade and be back to regular texting. But you got to at least give them an example of you not being the way that they think you're being in terms of being needy or desperate for their attention for them to stop playing the game. It's stupid, but it is what it is. So you can be mad at it or you can know what it is and just deal with it. Let's see, continuing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I did a video, another very popular video called She Hooked Up While You Were Broken Up. What do you do? And I've talked extensively about this now, so I don't want to get too much into that. But I basically talk about how, like, in this particular situation, I think it was a situation where they broke up. I think he broke it off, and then, like, he found out during the break that she hooked up with somebody else, and then they got back together, and he was mad at her for hooking up with somebody else. And I always tell you guys, it is not fair to keep somebody hostage while you're trying to figure out your feelings. So if you're like, we're going to break up, it's a breakup. It's a clean break. If she decides during that time, part of her healing is trying to get to know somebody else, and in the process of that, she hooks up with somebody else and then decides it wasn't for her, then if you're going to take her back, you cannot be mad at anything that she did during that break. Outside of, like, if she got pregnant, she got an STD, or she's trying to keep, like, that person she hooked up with as a friend in her friend group. Then you have viable reason to be mad, right? So this person said, nobody can get over the girl who you loved most having sex with another guy after a breakup. What you should do next is treat her as friends with benefits. F her as and when you like, while start looking for a new girlfriend who is more loyal than she is. Treat her that way and make your girlfriend regret for life. Make her pregnant and make her become single mom. This is the life lesson for not being loyal. Guys, why? Why would you put that stress on somebody else? Like, why would you make her life harder, especially you get pregnant, like make your life harder? Like, that's just ignorance and stupidness, and it's not necessary. And my thing is this: if you get back with her, if you're having conversations about getting back together, and she says to you, by the way, I hooked up with somebody else, you can decide, hey, you're not cool with that, and leave it alone. I'm saying if you decide you're going to be able to get past that and get back with her, then you doing that and then holding it against her is no bueno. But I also don't believe in, like, trying to get her back for a decision that she made when you guys weren't together, when there was no realistic vision that she saw of you guys ever getting back together again, and they're having to realistically move on. Like, if she's, like, trying to move on and you decide to come back in the picture and say, hey, I decided I want you back, let's hook back up, she had no idea you were going to do that. So it'd be like, but you hook up with anybody? That's totally unfair. It's totally unfair. And that's for both sexes, you know? Just don't do that. That's just ignorant. Let's see. So yeah, I did the thing about 5 reasons women don't want men with mental health issues. And somebody said women will expect you to carry their depression and watch them rot their brains with SSRIs to no benefit forever. But the second you feel down and worn out, you will get the sorry, I just don't feel it anymore. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of women out there that will be there for you through thick and thin, in sickness and in health, till death do you part. And if you are going through something, you realistically can go to them and talk to them about it. But I have just, in my experience and experience people that I've coached, I've just found that most women are expecting you as the guy to be able to handle your stuff. If you're going through a situation, yeah, it sucks and it's terrible, but I find most women typically aren't the best equipped at being able to, they're able to sit there and empathize with you and hear you out. But a lot of times they don't really have a solution. Like, if you think about, like, when women come to us with problems, what do they usually say? They just want us to sit there and listen to them. They don't want any solutions. They just want to be able to vent and get it out, right? So then they're thinking we come to them that they can do that same thing and it's going to work for us. And when we try to express that that's not all we need actual solutions, it's like, oh crap, most women haven't been trained to actually help a guy think up solutions to his problems, especially in the moment when you're bringing it to them, you know? And then they're also thinking, but you're the guy, you're supposed to be the one that solves problems. So for a lot of women, it can be a thing that it's less attractive. I don't make the rules. I don't think it's fair. But like I said in that video, like, it's sad to say. So, but the more you're able to handle your stuff, the more stoic you're able to become in life in general, you'll find that less things will bug you and you'll have better solutions to problems. So ideally, as part of your journey of becoming a man, you learn to not let the world bother you so much, because there's going to be plenty of things in the world that happen And the only thing you have control over is how you react to them. And if you're a guy that's constantly flying off the handle or getting nervous or crying, I'm sorry, the woman's not going to think that you're a safe space for her to go to when things are really happening. So you got to take that into consideration on the woman's side of things about how they're viewing that and why they're viewing that the way it is, you know? Before I get to this other question, I'm going to get another drink of water real quick. Like I said, guys, this is ultimately about you. So if you guys have any questions you want me to answer during this live, then you are welcome to ask the question, and I'll be happy to answer it for you because I love being helpful, especially when it comes to these lives. So you guys have been a great audience so far. Good old water. Let's see. There's some. Okay, so we're starting to get to some of the more recent ones. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is another comment that was left under my 5 ways to respond when she starts to pull away video. And so he says, even if you agree right away, I already know where this is going. Okay. He says, even if you agree right away that there will be no games or tests, women still do it. Well, yeah, because you're asking a woman a logical question about, hey, when we get together, can there be no games or tests? And her answer logically in the moment is yes. But then when something happens that affects her emotionally, now she's going to be like, to better protect my emotions, I got to do a test to make sure that the situation is playing out the way that it's playing out. And if I need to protect myself. So no, you can't ask a woman to agree to something when hypothetically nothing, like you're putting a hypothetical out there, like hypothetically, like men will do this. Men will be like, well, hypothetically, if we break up, would you like tell me or would you ghost me? And most women are going to be like, well, I wouldn't ghost you. I would hate ghosting you. I would totally tell you if I didn't like you anymore. And then what happens? Fast forward to 2 weeks later, he's texting her, not getting a response back. And he's like, but I thought you weren't going to ghost me. Well, emotionally in the moment, she's like, ghosting him makes me feel safe, so I'm going to do that. So you guys need to stop asking women in the moment, hey, you're not going to play these games, right? You're not going to test me, right? Because they're going to do it. Whether you try to preemptively stop them from doing it by asking them not to do it, they're going to still do it. Anyway, that's not his whole comment. So he says, but please riddle me this. You mentioned mirroring, right? So I say the mirroring thing about like, if she's starting to pull away, you mirror her actions. If it's, 5 hours, she's not texting you back, wait 5 or 10 hours, but you do the same motion back. That way, just to get her to the point where she recognizes that, okay, he's not needy of my attention, whatever. So he says, okay. So she says, I'm going out with my friends, and you were happy for her that she is going out because she misses her friends, and you tell her, have an amazing time. 5 or 6 hours go by, and then you hear from her again. She tells you how good it was. All is good. And then you go out and tell her, hey, a friend of mine asked me to come to his birthday party. I'll text you when I get back home. Not even 1 hour goes by, and she is already texting you, asking about the party. You don't text back right away because either you don't have your phone with you or you are talking with friends you haven't seen in ages. She gets angry, makes up scenarios in her head, and when you do text her back after maybe 3 hours, although you're still at the party, and she gets mad why you didn't text her back earlier. How on earth should you react to that? The rules apply to her, but not to you. For me, that is a sign of disrespect. I trust you, but you start giving me crap right away, although there is no reason for it. She can have guy friends and you are okay with them, but God forbid you have female friends. And whatever happened to that agreement, no games and no testing. So I'd say this. I wouldn't say this is an example of no games and no testing. I think this is an example of a woman that's being hypocritical. I think it's a thing whereby she's expressing that, well, you're letting her do things and she's wanting to do those things. So she's going out with friends and not answering her phone and whatever. And you're like, hey, I get it. Totally cool. And then you have a woman that's like, when you go out for even 3 hours, she's like, why aren't you texting me? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. How could you be there? So women that are hypocritical, I find are very hard to date. And as much as on this channel, I try to say, but there's still hope. And this means X, Y, and Z. You can have a conversation about it, yada, yada, yada. The bottom line is this is indicative of a woman that has a lot of work to do on herself because she's not secure enough to let you go for even an hour before she's trying to overtext. It's positive that she likes you enough to want to be able to talk to you all the time, but she doesn't have a realistic grasp that sometimes you're not going to be reachable. And when that happens, you can't be the guy that she pounds on and gets mad at because you didn't talk to her for 2 hours because you were with other people. I talked about that earlier with the Armenian chick that I was seeing, where like if I didn't text her back right away, she's assuming I'm cheating on her with somebody. So some women, and I'll do a whole show about attachment styles and stuff like that. But the point is that when you see women like this, recognize it is not your job to fix them. I know as guys, you think if I just have a few conversations with her, she'll be totally fine and she'll be able to understand that I need my time just like she needs her time. And hey, to be fair, you can have that conversation with her and try to get her to see that, hey, notice on this day and this is that. But I found that sometimes these are emotional situations where your guide logic is not going to necessarily sway her to your side of thinking. So I'd say give it a shot. I'd say try to say, hey, I didn't appreciate at the party thing because when you went out with your friends the other day, 5-6 hours, I didn't hear from you. And I was just like, but she's with her friends. It is what it is. I just expect the same thing. Hey, you went out with a couple of guy friends, and I was like, that's totally cool because they've been friends with forever, and you've never shown signs of wanting them, but you get mad because I'm texting a female friend on the phone. Like in either of the situations, if you're having these conversations and the behavior doesn't change, I'd say be out. I always say give anybody in general a chance to have a conversation and change their behavior. If they change their behavior, then hey, you know what? You got a woman that knows how to listen and take constructive criticism, and that's also great. But if she's not, and she's still harping on, but you didn't talk to friends, and blah, blah, get out, because it only gets worse later. Like the behavior she's showing you now is going to be doubled down and tripled down upon if you agree to it and say yes to it. So you got to stand up for yourself, have the conversation. If it doesn't change, be out. Because again, there's plenty of women out here that will not mind you going out with friends, hanging out with other women that are just friends, but they got to be secure in themselves. And this really shows a woman that's not secure in herself. All right. Anyway, we have a super chat. What? I got to start asking super chats. I didn't think about that, but thanks. Appreciate it. So super chat guy goes, Coach Harry, if a woman has high interest, meaning she contacts me every day, but you're long distance, is it a good idea to ask where things are going or keep it the way it is? So here's my thing. And this is whether it was long distance or whether it's short distance. I fundamentally do not believe it is the guy's job to ask that question. The traditional thought is that women are in control of sex and that men are in control of relationships. So that means that as men early on, we're doing all we can to show a woman a good time, to show that we have a chemistry, in the hopes that aside from eventually getting into a relationship, we're going to get to hook up with her, right? So at the point where that happens, fantastic. All you got to do now is just be consistent in that. Showing her a good time, showing her good hookups, building upon the chemistry you guys have. And if you do that, typically within a span of 2 to 3 months, a woman's had enough time spent with you to realize that you are a rarity amongst men in terms of the kind of chemistry you guys have, the kind of hookup she's having, the way that she feels about you. She's not going to find that every day. And so women that get to that point, they're not going to want to see you with other women, at which point they will come to you and say, hey, so where are we? Where's this relationship going? As long as you continue to say yes to dates, then you're good. Now, obviously being long distance, this complicates things, which is why I'm typically not the biggest fan of long distance relationships, because realistically, you want to see somebody, you want to touch them, you want to tangibly be able to like have them in their circle and be able to take them out on actual dates and spend time with them in person. And so with long distance, it means, I don't know if you guys' thing where it's like you guys are flying to each other to see each other, or if it's just FaceTime dates or whatever. But the point is that there's going to be a realistic need there to want to see each other in person at some point, which is why over time, it can be very easy if you're either person on either side to start looking outside of just you and her and start saying, well, who's around me? Well, who am I having conversations with? Who's going to allow me to go over there and get a nice hug? 'Cause I miss getting a hug from somebody, And so in my thought process, the only way long distance relationships work out in the long term is if one person is willing to actually move near the other person. Now, power dynamic wise, subconscious wise, it's typically better if the woman moves to where the man's going to be at. All right. But again, I don't know how old you are. I don't know where you're at in your relationship with this person. So I'll say this for now. In terms of your specific question, I would say keep doing what you're doing if it's working for purposes of long-term relationships, and do not bring up trying to make it into a boyfriend or girlfriend situation. If she wants that, she'll bring it to your attention. That's what and I know it can be nerve-wracking to hear that because as guys we're like, but I want to be so sure. And the only way I'll be sure is if we're in an actual like relationship. I have found typically as a guy, when you're asking that question, she's usually not quite ready for it because she's still doing her due diligence on you. And so when you ask, it cuts into the time she needs to get to that point on her own. And of the two of you, we're usually ready for a relationship after 1 or 2 good dates. Women, it takes like typically 2 to 3 months. I don't know specifically how long you two have been dating, but the point is, regardless whether it's been 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you need to, as long as she's saying yes to your interactions, you're good. Wait for her to be the one to come to you. And then when she comes to you, I talk about this extensively in my program, but the short version is you don't even say yes to that right away. You say, okay, well, what does this mean? Let's talk about the terms of us being together as a couple. How does that change our dynamic in terms of what we're doing now? What are the non-negotiables? What are things that you need? What are things that I need in terms of a long-term relationship? How long are we going to be dating each other before we decide who's going to move near who, if that's going to be a realistic possibility? Because if it's going to just be long distance, she might as well just be like a friends with benefits hookup buddy that you see when you're on vacation. But if you're trying to make it be a long-term thing, we're not even there yet. We still got to get to the point of her getting to where she wants to say, hey, what are we? Can we be in a relationship? So you leave it to her to do that and just keep doing what you're doing. As long as she's saying yes to dates, yes to interactions, and when you see her, you're regularly hooking up, then you guys are good, all right? Be confident that her saying yes to dates with you means that you're still in her good graces, all right? So hopefully, Guy, it helps you out. And thank you so much for the super chat. It's greatly appreciated. Let's see. Continuing on here. Going up here. Let's see. Big deal. Tell me. Okay. Been there. Oh, here we go. Oh, we already answered that. This is can you give us reasons a man should pull away? I already answered that very, very early on in this show. So you guys can rewind back on that one. Okay. This guy here, this one's really depressing. Okay. So this guy left a message under my video, 3 lessons to learn about yourself when women pull away. And I go through the lessons a guy should learn about himself because, like I said earlier, I don't think that pulling away, it's not, I mean, women can be driven to do that based on our behaviors, but there's also ways that we react and things we should observe about ourselves and how we feel when women are pulling away that can start to give us clues about what things we're doing that maybe in general are chasing women away. So this guy very depressingly said, this makes it clear for me. Hold on a second. He says, this guy says, this makes it clear for me. I will die alone. Oh, hurts. He says, I am pretty sure I am doing some stuff like trying to seem extroverted or making jokes. But most of the times I don't realize when I'm starting to do that and I screw it up before I actually realize that I'm doing it. Other times I just believe that I am stopping in time, but that destroys my mood because I become stressed about not doing that mistake again unwillingly. So my change of mood becomes a turnoff to them. The worst part is to act unnaturally, unwillingly. Does that mean that it becomes natural for me to act unnatural? You might think that acting unnatural requires you to force it, but if it becomes a habit, does that become part of your nature? So I get what this guy is saying. He's saying basically like he doesn't want to be somebody that he's not. Obviously, acting extroverted is not in his nature when he's really an introvert. And so he's asking like, you know, if I start trying to do these new things, do they become natural at some point? Here's the thing. And it's a thing that as a kid growing up, you don't realize that every which way that you become is all learned behavior. The way you learn to react to stuff, the way you learn to talk to people, even something as simple as like your accent. Like, you know, I come from a family that talks relatively fast. I talk fast. I come from the East Coast and was on the West Coast, so I have a certain accent about me. Whereas if I was like from Alabama or someplace, I'd have more of a twang. Like all that stuff is learned behavior based on our influences and our environment and our genetics and DNA and stuff like that. So there are parts that we're naturally, quote unquote, born with, but a good portion of how we are and how we respond to things is based on like doing it time after time after time after time. And so to that end, I need men to start thinking differently about what their natural selves are. Because the reality is, as you get older, if we were to go with the theory that you should just be your natural self all the time, well, it was natural of you at age 5 to like throw a temper tantrum when you didn't get your way. Is that going to work at 25, at 30, at 40? No. So to that point, if you were trying to be your natural self still, you could do that, but you're not going to get the results that you want. So your parents, ideal if you have, good parents that want the best for you, are going to over time teach you different ways to react when you're not getting your way. Okay. So now we got to transfer this over to dating. There are going to be ways right now that you may be acting that you're thinking, well, it's just naturally how I am. Women should just accept this part of me because it's just a natural thing of who I am. And some of those things could be very well true. But a lot of those things are just simply learned behaviors that became habits that are no longer serving you. But because you've done them for so long, and more importantly, because you don't have other systems in place that you can learn that are going to be better habits, you're thinking, well, if I try this new thing, it's going to be unnatural and I'm not going to like it. Now, here's the other truth too. And because I don't want to skirt over this, is that when you're learning new habits and behaviors, it's all going to feel unnatural. Like something as simple as simple example is the whole texting thing, like waiting 4 to 5 days at minimum. And I've waited these days now, I've waited 2 to 3 weeks to get back to a woman that I was trying to date. All right. But when I first started doing that, it felt very unnatural because my natural self was I'm texting a woman, I'm going on a date and having a good time. And I'm so used to just texting a woman that good night text or that good morning text that in doing anything else different, I don't know what the results are going to be if I do that. So I'm apprehensive about doing it. So it's not so much that it's unnatural. It's just that you don't have any results that indicate it's going to be a positive thing for you to change to this new behavior. You have results that you're getting right now that aren't the results that you want, but you can predict the result subconsciously. Subconsciously, if you overtext, that eventually they're going to get tired of you and go away. Subconsciously, you know that, but the problem is you don't know what other behaviors are going to get you better results. And then you hear something like me where I say hey, wait 4 or 5 days before you text. And then the thought is but that sounds stupider than what I'm doing now. It makes sense in my head to text her after the date because I can at least get some correspondence, but it doesn't feel natural for me to wait 4 or 5 days to text this woman after a date because I don't know the response. And I haven't had enough practice doing that to see if that's something I should be doing. And it's going to stress me out doing it. Therefore, it's going to feel unnatural. And so this is where it becomes important to recognize that if you have behaviors that aren't serving you in the dating world, then that means that there's alternative things you need to be trying that aren't going to feel natural at first, because you got to figure, let's say you're 25. You have all these behaviors that you've been doing up to this point, and somebody like me comes along and says, hey, change this, this, and this. Well, logically, it might sound like it might possibly work, but the problem is if you've been dating since you were 15, you have 10 years of this habit you've been doing that you just keep thinking, at some point, if I find the right woman, these habits are going to be the things that get me the girl. And then I'm saying, but if you do this thing over here, you're going to get better results with more women. And you might have gotten a result or two with what you're doing now, and it's not the results that you want, but they've been results. And now you're hearing do this new thing, and that doesn't feel natural. And it takes a great leap of faith to abandon the things that you're doing and say, I'm going to give it a shot and try this new stuff. And that's the journey that I went through in my mid-20s, where I was like, I keep stressing and women don't make sense to me and blah, 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 blah. And it's just actually early 20s. When I was 21, I took a semester off of school and I was on a tour with 5 guys on a tour bus. I was doing a theater tour. I was a theater major. And that's when I got my really first look at being just solely around. Because up to this point, my dad died when I was 9. I grew up around mostly women. I didn't have a really big circle of guy friends. I had no examples of what this is supposed to look like. I just knew that I had some stuff that I thought I knew that should work, and it wasn't working, but what else do I do? And then when I was on this tour, I would be going out night after night with these guys at clubs and seeing them just pick up on women and talk to them all kinds of certain ways and touching them and grabbing them and doing stuff. And they'd be going back to the hotel room with us, not me, but with them. And that's when I started realizing, okay, you know what? You can keep doing what you're doing, but what they're doing is working. So let's figure out what they're doing. And that's when I started really studying up. And yeah, those first few years of trying to build new habits, it was tough because I would keep wanting to go back to my old programming because it felt the most comfortable. But every time I would do that, I wouldn't get the results that I wanted. So you have to get past the idea of it's got to feel natural all the time, because when you're building new habits, it's not going to feel natural. But as you do those habits, it might take a year or two. That's why I really emphasize doing the coaching programs that I have, because I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, you join my coaching program and in 12 weeks, you'll have women figured out. You will have a blueprint of what to do, and we'll have some conversations that allow you to really start changing your brain, but you got to put them into habit and action. And it might take a year before you finally get to where it's like, hey, everything I'm doing now feels right. But when you first start out doing it, some of it's not going to feel right. And you're going to want to backtrack to what you were doing. And you got me to help coach you along and say, hey, notice you're getting results. Don't go back to that previous guy and those previous actions. Do this new stuff. And you'll see over time, oh crap, I now know how to get women, how this happened. This all feels so natural now. And it at one point it wasn't, you know? So just a little pep talk for you guys that are thinking, I want to try some of the stuff you're talking about, Harry, but man, you know what? Like, I just can't, it just feels really weird. And I don't want to be my unauthentic self. I would never try to tell you to not be authentic, but I would say change your definition of what authentic means, because everything that's authentic about you was a learned behavior. You can learn new behaviors that become your new authenticity. Anyway, before I get on to these things, I got some questions over here in the chat. Love the chat questions. So this guy says, new subscriber here. First texted a girl on Thursday for about 5 to 10 minutes. Next day, she texted me a good Friday. Was busy on Friday, so I applied on Saturday morning. No response yet. I think this is the test. If she replies, what should the response be and how long for a reply? 2 to 3 days to mirror her, right? So, all right. So since you're new, I'm not going to browbeat you too much, but here we go. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, I'm very much, the idea I have is texting kills attraction, meaning that as a guy, you trying to text her some witty banter or some text just to text or some get to know you text to try to build rapport, none of that's necessary. If a woman gives you her number, she wants you to use it to ask her on a date. So if you're trying to figure out, you text her something and she texts you back something, you're trying to text to continue the conversation, you're wasting your time, because I got news for you. If she's texting you, she has a bunch of other simps in her message and DMs that are texting her all day chit-chatting, and she's dating none of them, because probably none of them are actually having the gusto to ask her on a date. So what I would do if I were you, this is just unsolicited advice here, is she texted Saturday, you see, was busy on Friday, so you applied on Saturday morning. Great. I'd say wait till Tuesday and see if she texts you between now and Tuesday. And if she doesn't, that's totally fine if she doesn't. But Tuesday comes, the first text to her should be, hey, would love to meet up and take her on a date, take her to the movies, take her to a walk in the park, meet up and get to know you more. I'm free Wednesday or Thursday night. Let me know what works for you. Simple, effective. You're asking for the date. Now, at that point, she has a choice to make. If she wants to go on a date, ask her out. If not, then it is what it is. Update, it says she's in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney. Oh my God. So sorry. I went to Sydney, Australia back in 2018. So I'm very aware of how far apart that is. So I'm glad you mentioned that just now. So this is a long distance thing. So this is one of the things I mentioned earlier, that ultimately long distance relationships don't really work out for the best, just because you're going to want to be around the person at some point. So if there's nobody else in Sydney you can possibly date, then I mean, I don't think that's accurate. I think you could probably find some women in Sydney outside of this woman to date who's like far away in Melbourne. But so I would just say, keep the conversation going, I guess. Like, the point of all this texting and talking to people is to be able to, if you're interested in them, to actually see them in person, go on some dates and be interested. Now, I have had friends of mine that started off in different states. Here in the States, like I had a friend that was in Ohio and the guy was in DC, and they were texting back and forth on a Facebook chat for like a long time. But eventually one of them moved towards the other one, and then they got married. Now they have kids, right? So they were able to keep the conversation going. So in this case, I would say ideally reach out to her in a couple of days and, ask if it's possible at some point to meet up sooner than later. If not, just, have regular chats. But if she's not willing to keep up the chat, knowing that you guys are both far away, that's also not a very great sign. Because ultimately, like I said, you're going to want to see her at some point. If you're not able to see her realistically, there should be, not that you have to chat every day. Because I'm really like, if you're going to do long distance, honestly, I'd say do a FaceTime once, maybe twice a week, and do it that way, because this nonstop texting is really not in the best interest, in my opinion. Like, I think it's better to have FaceTime chats. You can see each other, talk to each other. You can have meals together on FaceTime if you want to do like an interactive date with her. but like the texting back and forth, like to me, it's not the best method of getting to know a person. So I'd say go more towards that, but also keep looking for women in your town, because I assure you there are women in your town that will date you if only you have a plan of action and you're able to put yourself out there more often. If you need help with that, you can sign up for one-on-one coaching at the website or write me an email or whatever. I can do another one of these videos where I go into more depth. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Let's see, continuing on. Let's see. Oh, I love this question. So this guy left a comment under my video. Women chase men when they have high interest. Here's proof. And I mentioned how basically about like all the things that that it gives proof that when women have high interest in you, they'll chase after you, yada, yada, yada. So this guy's question is great. I don't think I've actually answered this on the channel before. He says, what if I'm with a woman who doesn't have a dating history? She's never had a boyfriend. I'm the first person she's ever made out with. I do all the planning and she comes whenever I do, but I never hear from her unless I call or text her. I don't mind it. I know she's interested. I just don't know to what level. Since she is new to dating, I think she just isn't aware of what to do. So this is one of the rare women that has not been tainted by the dating game. She hasn't had anybody she's hooked up with. She hasn't had any kind of negative experiences. You are her first experience, and that is an absolute great place to be. And with that said, based on the description of what I've just told you guys, it seems like she might be a very traditional woman, meaning that, like, you know, she's waiting for you to do the planning. She's following your lead. And women like this tend to also be the kind of women that are like, hey, and also I'll be happy to pick up the phone whenever he calls. I'll respond to a text whenever he sends it. But I don't want to typically, since if I'm a traditional woman, I'm letting the guy lead and do all the stuff to like come to me to ask for dates, but I know to say yes to those dates, but I'm not going to overburden him and be too needy by reaching out and texting him all the time, because I'm going to assume if I'm a traditional woman, he's a traditional guy. He's out there chasing his goals and dreams and getting money and being busy, and I don't want to interrupt that. All right. And the problem, this is why I have a problem with texting today, because texting kills attraction. And I think too many men have started to rely on texting being the barometer for how much a woman likes them. Like, well, if she's never texting me at all, she must have no like, in spite of the fact that she's saying yes to dates, going out with you, possibly sleeping with you, all these other things, but we're so stuck on, but she's not texting. Guys, get out of your head that you need to be doing all this texting to attract women or to get a read from them on how much they like you. The fact that she's saying yes to all the stuff, the fact that she's letting you lead, the fact that she's willing to listen to what you have to say, that is a better gauge of her interest than her texting will ever be. All right. So I say there's no problem here. Now, if this is early on in the process, then I could get the thing of like, you know, you're saying, I know she's interested. I just don't know to what level. This goes back to, as long as you're being consistent in what you're doing and she's saying yes to the things that you're doing, then you're good. So you're asking her on dates. She says yes. That means she likes you. You ask her on another date. She says yes. It means she likes you. Until she says no to dates or until she ghosts you or flakes, you are good. But if you're consistently doing what I just told you to do, then by the 3-month mark, she'll start having the questions of like, hey, so, you know, you're really like a great guy. I've never had feelings for a guy like you before. And, you know, I really wanted to see where this is going. Like, even a woman that hasn't had much experience will bring up, but what are we, at the point where she realizes, hey, this guy's a really good guy. I can actually see him as a potential boyfriend. I think I want him around more, and I don't want to risk losing him to another woman. So I'm going to ask him. And it might not be directly like, hey, so what are we? But you got to start listening to things like, hey, so are you seeing other women? Hey, so I really, really, really enjoy spending my time with you. Oh my God, you make me feel like no other. Like, all these things should indicate to you that she's about ready for that conversation to happen. And even then, at some point, she will bring up, hey, so what do you think about where this thing is going? Yada, yada, yada. Like, just wait for that and you'll be fine. But you found somebody that's a rarity. She hasn't been tainted in any way, shape, or form. So this also means that you need to treat her the best you possibly can. I'll give you a real story, guys. There was a woman I was dating a few years ago, and she was much younger than me. And when we first started dating, she would be questioning like how good I was treating her, because she had had bad experiences in the past. But like, you know, we were going on trips together. I was showing her a good time. We were taking each other out and stuff like that. And I was just doing all the nice stuff, right? You know, and again, she was younger than me. So she was like 24, 25 at the time. and she was still in school. So she was planning to go to grad school in a different state. And she didn't know she was going to meet me. For all I know, she could have gotten on the dating apps and met me thinking it's going to be just a hookup, and then that be it. And then it just turned out we ended up really liking each other. And then she was like, oh, crap. Like, it was what it was. So inevitably, she left the state. And then I started seeing somebody else. And then she ended up moving back to the state, in part because the grad school she wanted to go to didn't work out, but also because she was hoping she could still be with me. And at that point, I was like, I'm seeing somebody else. I'm sorry, it is what it is. But the last few times we had been together, she had expressed to me that, like, I really just like the way you treat me, and you opened up my eyes to like how guys could actually be. Thank you so much, yada, yada, yada. And then fast forward to now, she's married and she's about to have a kid, and she got with a really, really great guy. And I like to think I was part of that journey, because prior to me, she had been with these dudes that were not treating her great. And I was able to show her that there are great guys out there that will treat you well and that mean you no harm. And so that's important. Women need to get that experience, and you could be the guy giving her that experience, whether it works out or not, And so it's important. You got to recognize that when you're dating somebody, you're not just looking out for what's in your best interest. You're looking out for what's best for them, and you're part of their experience, of their life experience. And so you want to make that as much of a positive life experience as you can. Because I've also been on the other end where, like, I wasn't the best guy in the relationship and I made it a negative experience, and that also has repercussions, And I don't even like the fact that that's even in my history, but it's like I had to recognize, like, dude, you're going to be responsible in part for how they're going to view dating from here on out, whether it works out or not. And you can't mess that up, So you got to take that responsibility on and take it on highly, because it's anytime a woman's letting you inside of her and letting you into her world is a very, very big deal. All right. So try not to be the a-hole guy is what I'm saying. So you still scroll up on these comments, guys. If you guys have any questions here, then I'm happy to answer them. Oh, here we go. So for those of you that read the thumbnail to this video, sorry, hold on. Sorry, I haven't done a live this long before, guys, so I appreciate you guys that are still here. So this guy has autism, and he left a comment under my video, 5 reasons women don't want men with mental health issues, where I talk about, again, as a guy, I mentioned the reasons, and I say, if you're a guy that has various mental issues, try to get them as rightened as you possibly can, whether it's getting a medication, therapy, whatever, because you want to be in the best shape you possibly can for the condition that you have before you ask somebody else out, right? So this guy said, so if I have autism, should I forget about getting a girlfriend? And then my response to him was, I said, I don't know the specifics of your autism or how it shows itself, and I would never lie and tell you it wouldn't be difficult. But also, plenty of people with autism find mates. I said, off the top of my head, Amy Schumer's husband has autism. I said, so it's not impossible. But to my point in the video, you would need to have done the serious work of getting whatever issues it's caused you under control as best you can. So then he responded back. He said, thanks, Harry. I do have a childhood friend who is on the spectrum, who is married, and I read success stories like Amy Schumer's husband. Would it be best said that if one is high functioning enough to effectively manage the social impediments of autism, thus striving to make it an asset instead of a burdensome liability? He then says, I'm 34. I was diagnosed when I was 6, and I'm gainfully employed as an urban planner. Sorry. Oh, I don't know why waters make me burp so much. He says, I own a house and I have a lot of great hobbies. I haven't yet had a girlfriend because my biggest thing is an intense fear of rejection because of being bullied when I was younger. He said, I still need to overcome my fear of rejection before I can ask a woman out. Read about rejection sensitive dysphoria and how it impacts people with autism and ADHD. For people who don't have an intense sensitivity to rejection, rejection is a hiccup. For those who are more sensitive, rejection is a heart attack. There's just so much content on the internet that is so brutal about people with autism, even those who are high functioning, like impediments in education, employment, and romantic relationships. So to his point, I did actually look up rejection sensitive dysphoria because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to talk about it, I want to be knowledgeable of it. All right. So I'll give the short description here. It says rejection sensitive dysphoria is when you experience severe emotional pain because of a failure or feeling rejected. This condition is linked to ADHD, and experts suspect it happens due to differences in brain structure. Those differences mean your brain can't regulate rejection-related emotions and behaviors, making them much more intense. Then he goes into a more deeper description. It says, while rejection is something people usually don't like, the negative feelings that come with RSD are stronger and can be harder to manage, or both. People with RSD are also more likely to interpret vague interactions as rejection and may find it difficult to control their reactions. And then let's see, symptoms of it. Let's see, people with RSD often show the following traits and behaviors. It's very easy for them to feel embarrassed or self-conscious. They show signs of low self-esteem and trouble believing in themselves. They have trouble containing emotions when they feel rejected. This is often noticeable in children and teenagers with this condition. Some may react with sudden shows of anger or rage, while others may burst into tears. It says, instead of losing control of their emotions outwardly, some people with RSD may turn their feelings inward. This can look like a snap onset of severe depression, and sometimes it's mistaken for sudden emotional shifts that can happen with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. It says they're often people pleasers and become intensely focused on avoiding the disapproval of others. They may avoid starting projects, tasks, or goals when there's a chance of failure. And they compensate for their fear of failure or rejection by going all out or striving for perfectionism. However, the downside of this is that they often experience intense anxiety and may not easily make self-care or downtime a priority. So there's a lot more. I'll leave the link this in the particularly on the page. Matter of fact, I'll just leave a link here for people that want to read it. So this is all the stuff about I just read. And there's some more stuff on that page as well. So going back to this guy's question about that, right? So he says he has this rejection sensitive dysphoria, right? So here's my thing. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to diagnose anything, or I don't want to have this feel like this is any kind of professional advice, all right? Because I don't have ADHD, and I don't think I do, and I don't have autism or anything like that. So I can't speak for what this guy's personal journey is in reference to what he's going through or experience, okay? I can touch on a few things he mentioned, though. So for starters, to the point, nobody is really a fan of rejection. And as we're growing up, I think that the ways in which we're taught to handle rejection can greatly influence and impact how we date. Now, again, this is a little more extreme for people with autism based on what this guy is saying. I remember my first instance of telling a woman, or a woman finding out that I liked her, right? I was 5 years old. There was a woman named, I talk about this in my book, No Girls for You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams. I talk about this story. And by the way, you can get that book by going to my website and clicking on the products tab. You can also get the album that goes with that, which features my buddy Non Juan. But anyway, so I told this, so this girl was, her name was Melody, and I had a crush on her. And I told my brother and my best friend Tasha at the time that I thought she was really, really pretty. And there'll be times, she lived in my neighborhood, so there'll be times when like we'd hang out and ride bikes and it was all good. And then one day I got on the bus to go to school, and I sat behind Melody on the bus, and I said, "Hey Melody, how you doing?" And she turns to me and she's like, "I know you have a crush on me." I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, "No, I don't." And she's like, "No, I know you have a crush on me. You have a crush on me. You have a crush on me." And it was like a scene out of a movie. All the kids on the bus started laughing at me. It was the first time I ever had a girl know that I liked her. And the response was getting laughed at, getting rejected, getting ridiculed by other kids on the bus. And that turned me off from letting any woman know I liked her for the next like almost 10 to 12 years. Real talk. All right. And so to his point, like the rejection of getting rejected by women didn't get any easier, like really until like my later college days. I was finally able to lose my virginity, but also get to the point where it's like, if a woman knew that I liked her, it was okay. And that I could do other moves that let her know that I liked her, and they'd be open to them, versus like, if I do a move, they're going to think, "What are you doing? You're just Harry. I don't want to be, we're just friends. I don't want to, date you." And then being scared off. Right. But that took a long freaking time. So to the point, so for one, like, yes, people with autism, like he said, rejection feels like a hiccup for those that haven't, that he said, for people who don't have an insensitive sensitivity, who don't have an intense sensitivity to rejection is a hiccup. Most people, for a good portion of their age growing up, have an intense sensitivity to rejection. Like I've talked to plenty of men that do not have any kind of mental disorder or any kind of mental health issue whatsoever, that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, that are still like, I want to approach her, but like, what if she's going to think of me? Or what if she thinks I'm dumb or a moron? Like that's still a thing for people that don't have mental health issues. Okay. So that's the first thing. All right. And this isn't trying to discount that it may feel more intense for you, all right? But here's the other thing too, because he mentions that rejection, it can feel like a punch in the gut, and that it causes people with autism to want to hold back because the biggest fear is rejection, right? So if we're going along the feeling of rejection, the feeling of rejection is a fear that people with autism have. Then my question would be, but could the things that you consider a rejection be selective? Because in this paragraph, he talks about how he's gainfully employed as an urban planner and how he owns a house and he has hobbies, right? So to be an urban planner, that takes, I imagine, years of training to get to. There were some points along that journey where you were trying to take a certain class or trying to talk to certain people or trying to get certain projects where you got rejected. Was your reaction excessively strong when you got those rejections? Trying to get a house. You might find a house and you really, really want it, but then somebody comes in last minute and bids on it and gets it before you. So you got rejected for your offer for that house. In those moments, did the rejection feel so intense that you felt like you were having a heart attack? If you did, then I totally get it. And hey, that's just every time you got rejected ever in life, then you always going to have that feeling. But what I'm trying to point out is that in some of those cases, it's like if the rejection was already expected, but you recognize that the rejection is part of the process of getting to your ultimate goal, then you didn't see the rejection as an end all be all. You saw the rejection as part of the process of getting to what you wanted. And therefore that rejection was necessary in order to finally get the desired outcome, right? So what I'm saying to that is that if you're able to react in a, we'll say, I don't want to use the term, but like in a more proper way, if you're able to act to certain rejections in a more proper way, where it's like, okay, you didn't get the project you wanted, you didn't get the house you wanted, maybe you were trying to do a hobby and like you got rejected for initially on when you were trying to do that hobby at first and you weren't the best at it. Like, how did you react in those moments? If you were able to react calmly in those moments, and that means that your rejection process or what you're considering a rejection could be selective, which is actually a great thing, because could you then possibly transfer the idea that if I get rejected by a woman, it's the worst thing ever, and I'm going to have the heart attack feeling, to, in order to get a woman of some kind to date me, I need to get X amount of rejections as part of the process to eventually get what I want. Because that's, again, as a person that doesn't have this, but was horrible with women and was very, very nervous about approaching women, about approaching them in person or approaching them online, my brain eventually got to, okay, let's reverse this. Instead of saying like, I'm so afraid I'm going to get rejected, what if I had the thought of like, you know what? Today I need to go out there and get 20 rejections to be able to get 2 dates. So as long as I'm going out there, I already anticipate that I'm going to get no's to this, but that ultimately I'm going to have success by going through those rejections. So now rejection is part of the success process. So when I go out there now, I'm going to go up to the first woman fully expecting, I'm going to fully expect this woman's going to reject me, but I'm not trying to get that first woman. I'm trying to get the 20th woman. And I know somewhere along this process, if I'm just asking and going to people, whatever, that one of these women are going to be one of those 20. And what I found when I did that, like I did that in college, right? When I was starting to want to expand my dating mojo, I was like, okay, you know what? Harry, you've been going too long without getting dates. You're scared as freak that these women are going to reject you. So do this. You have women friends that you already know are probably going to say no to a date, right? Because they're your friends. They're going to feel awkward. But you know what? Go up to like the next 5 women friends of yours and ask them on a date. Just say, hey, I'm trying to get more dating practice in, and I'd love to take you out. Just do that and see what happens. So I asked the first girl, and she says, I'm not going to do it. Okay, wait. The next 3 women I asked out, fully expecting they're going to think this is a stupid plan. This is dumb. I asked 3 women in a row back to back for dates, and they all said yes. But I went in, because I went in expecting them to say no, I didn't have this anxiety of like, but they're going to say no, it's the worst thing. I was like, no, I fully expect them to say no. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the no, be like, great, check off, get up to the next one, because inevitably I'm going to get a yes. And I got 3 yeses in a row. So that taught me that I can't be so afraid of rejection, because it's part of the process to getting success with women. So consider that. Like, again, I'm not a medical doctor or professional, so I can't really see if that's going to work or not, but try that. Try saying, let me add rejection to part of the success process and know that when I go out there, I need to get 18 rejections to get 2 yeses, and I'm willing to find where those yeses are and see if that helps you. Now, if it doesn't, I've given you no advice here and go talk to a professional, but I just want you to think about it differently so your brain will react differently, and hopefully that'll be a technique that helps. I don't know if it will, but try that out and see if it works. Yeah, exactly. Somebody in the comments said it's a numbers game. It really is. And that's the thing. It's like, I think a lot of times guys are afraid of the numbers, because what a guy's fear is this, is that it's a numbers game and every number he asks out is going to be a no. I have found, again, if you ask out like 50 women, even if you're like a 5 guy that's like 5'2" and is like whatever, inevitably a girl's going to be like, I'll give it a shot. And that's all you need. You only need one. You only need one to say yes, be able to show out the best time you possibly can. But you're not going to get that if you're like, I asked 2 girls out on dates and now I don't do it anymore. Oh my God, I'm afraid. Sorry, of the 2 sexes, we're the ones that got to go out there and risk taking the bullet by asking these women out. But, you know, as you practice it more, as you develop the habits, as you have a plan of action for what to say or how to say things, or even something as simple as like, in my program, I talk about how to pick women up at parties. Something as simple as knowing how to approach women, when to approach a woman, how to talk to her, when to leave that interaction, when to ask for the number, and when to hit her up. Like, if you just have a plan for that, that'll get you more dates than like 97% of other guys out here. And that's some stuff you can learn in my program. Go to the website and check it out. All right. Let's see, continue on. We're almost done here, guys. Like I said, if you have any questions, ask me while I'm still on. Let's see. Okay, this woman left a random comment. She left a comment under I matched her pull away. Now she's asking why I pulled away. She says, he doesn't text or call. I tried to reach out, and we do see each other on the weekends in a mutual group of friends. Now he's calling me stubborn and himself stubborn. So he's calling me names now. Sounds like a game to me. And my response was, seeing each other only when friends are around doesn't sound like dating. Like, real talk, whether it's the guy doing it or the woman doing it, if the person you're trying to get with is like, sure, we can hang out only when there's friends around, they're not trying to date you. They're trying to nicely hang around you because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but they're not really interested, but they don't want to look like the bad guys. So they're going to try to be like, well, this is a fair compromise in my head. This person can still see me, but I don't have to ever be alone with them. That's not a person you want to date. If anytime a person you're trying to get with is suggesting, let's meet up with friends, and then the only time they're trying to see you is when they're meeting up with friends, then take the hint that they're not highly interested and move on to somebody else. Save yourself the time. All right, let's see. Okay, this is an interesting one. So under the 5 ways to pass or pull away test video, this woman left a comment, and she said, a woman saying this. She says, this dude assumes women are logical, laughy face. Half the time, we don't even know what we want. If a gal is into you, she will want to see you over and over again. My advice to guys, when a girl starts pulling away, get another girl. If she comes back and you still like her, pick up from there. Be with people who want to be with you. So for the second part, I literally said in the video, like, if she's pulling away, like, continue to see other people. And then if she like decides that she wants to see some more, then is what it is. But to the point, she contradicted herself because she says, half the time we don't know what we want. And then she says, if a gal is into you, she will want to see you over and over again. So if a woman likes you, then she's going to want to see you all the time, but she doesn't know what she wants. That makes no sense. So this is where I point to, like, I think women, as well-meaning as they are, don't always know the things that they're actually attracted to. And this is why typically they're trying to give advice from a different standpoint than men are, which makes their advice at times very, very confusing. Because you're saying this dude assumes women are logical. And I hate when men say women are illogical. Like I keep going back to, men and women speak different languages. They think about things differently. We come from a more analytical, logical standpoint. They come from an emotional, logical standpoint. And so if you understand how emotional logic works, then women become very, very easy to understand. But if you're not putting in the work to understand that, and this goes for if women aren't willing to understand themselves, then yeah, even to them, they are going to be confusing to them. Because women will say things like, yeah, we're just so hard to figure out. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I'm sorry. I grew up around women. I studied women long enough. I think I'm old enough to kind of know what's going on in women's heads a little bit. Like, I'm not trying to speak for them, but if you're around something in the environment long enough, you can catch on to some things. And I'm still learning every day about women. But the point is, like, I know enough about them to not be confused when they ghost, when they say one thing and mean another thing, when they do certain actions that to most men wouldn't make sense. I can be like, oh, this makes sense from the X, Y, and Z standpoint. But this goes back to, you have to study women enough to know this. And so for you guys that complain about women, you can complain, or you could just like start learning about them. Like I started learning about them at 21. And so now I know all about them, and nothing women do surprises me. Like I'm at the point of my dating journey where nothing women do that women say surprise me. If they're hiding some kind of secret from me, and they tell me, oh, so I haven't told you up to this point, but this is what blah, blah, blah. I know why they did it. I know why they didn't want to tell me. If they have something that comes up, or like some guy from the past comes up and it bugs them all day, I know why that happened. If they're trying to surprise me certain ways that I'm thinking, why were they doing that certain way? But I know why they're doing it. Like nothing surprises me. And as a guy, this is gonna be the weirdest thing, right? Because people think that, dating needs to be a surprise and it needs to be spontaneous. The less spontaneous you can make dating for yourself, and the more you can actually know about the process of dating, you need dating on your side to be boring enough to where nothing surprises you, because that puts you in control of how the dating relationship with your woman is going, and you being able to be a leader. Because a leader, if you're going to be the leader of the relationship, you need to know everything that's going on in your environment and how it functions, including how your woman's going to act and react to things. If you don't know that, you're actually putting your woman in danger, and she's going to be less likely to want to date you. The biggest thing I learned from one of my women friends is that women actually respect a guy that has game. Women actually respect a guy that knows what he's doing with women, because it says to her, if he knows how to handle me, he knows how to handle us in dangerous situations. He knows how to handle us when kids come around, and all that stuff is important to her livelihood. So you can't play this game of like, I can't figure out women, and women are just so confusing, because all that talk is not going to make women feel safe around you. So learn women, and you'll make it easier for yourself in the dating game. Random comment. I did a video called 3 Things She's Feeling When She Ignores You, and what your response should be. And so I gave three things that she's feeling. This person hilariously put, and the 4th reason is PMS. Guys live like if they had no idea PMS exists. So, I don't want to be one of those guys that says, the reason woman's acting all weird is because it's that time of the month and she's hormonal, but that is also a reason you got to take into account. There have been studies that have come out recently that said, like, every week of the month, depending on where the woman is in her cycle, she could be acting differently. So she could be like totally happy and vibrant one week, and the next week she's just kind of like cool and chilled and laid back. And that 3rd week she's getting kind of antsy, and the 4th week she's cranky, and then it could repeat to something completely different the next cycle. But yeah, take that into account, that when you're dating a woman, especially that first month, inevitably in that first month, she's going to have PMS, and she might be in that space where it's like, crap, I'm having like a heavy flow day, or I'm just feeling really ugly about myself, and I don't want anybody to see me, especially the guy that I just started dating that doesn't know this side of me yet, and I don't want to show it to him. I need to pull away for a little bit, because I need to get back to feeling like my regular self. And then 3 or 4 days from now, when I'm feeling good again, when I'm not feeling like I'm about to blow up in the world or whatever, then I'll get back to him, because I'll be the lively, jovial person I was that he's been dating this whole time. And you're sitting there thinking, she's not talking to me, she's not trying to see me, she has other guys, blah, 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 blah. Take into account, if you've been seeing her for 3 weeks, it's either this week or next week that she's on a period, and stuff could be going haywire. I wouldn't ask her about it at this time. Usually women will say to you, if they start liking you a lot, like, oh, my period's coming up. That means they're really starting to feel comfortable around you. But if that hasn't happened yet, that could be another reason that they're ignoring you or pulling away at the moment, is because they're on their period. So thank you for pointing that out. I didn't point it out in my video. Sorry. I didn't think about putting that in there. Let's see. Oh, I think that's it. I think that's all the comments. Let me see if there's any other ones that I had listed on my notes here that I want to talk about. Oh, you know what? I never got into this question, so let me get into this question. All right. So finally, the question that was on here are reasons. So the question was how to spot a woman that is showing fake interest. And so the guy had written me a question about how can you tell if a woman is really interested in you or showing fake interest. All right. So I think I went over that earlier about some of the things that women will do. Oh, I didn't go over actually. So basically, yes, there are times when you will be dating a woman and, eventually you find out that she's actually not as interested in you as you thought she was, and you fell for the okie doke and you got tricked. And how can you spot that? Well, this goes into the real discussion I want to have, which is that ultimately it's not even about if a woman is faking interest, because the reality is most women really aren't that great at being able to hide if they aren't interested. They really aren't. So then, if that's the case, then what's really going on? And what's really going on is that for a variety of reasons, most of the time, what's really going on is that the man and we're talking about cannot tell that the woman is not showing interest. And there are 5 reasons why it is that a man would not be able to tell that a woman is faking interest. So I'm going to go into each of those reasons. The first reason that a man might not be able to tell that a woman is faking interest is because denial. Up to this point, a guy may be in a situation where he hasn't really had a lot of women like him. And so he finally gets one. And so they're having a good interaction here and there. And then she starts doing stuff. She starts texting less. She starts calling less. She starts saying yes to dates, but then flaking or not answering him back at all when he's trying to ask for a date, or when they're in person, he's trying to give her a hug or touch her, and she's kind of like backing away a bit. And this, to me, again, I've been in this long enough to where if I start seeing those kind of signals, I just automatically know, oh, she's losing interest. All right, well, we'll finish this date up and I'll never talk to her again. It is what it is. But for some men, those signals are happening and they're so wanting this to be a thing that they don't even see it. Like he's telling a joke and she's rolling her eyes and he doesn't see that because he's so looking at what he wants out of the situation that he's not looking at what's going on in front of him. So he's able to very easily deny that any of these signals are happening. And then later on, he feels blindsided when he finally realizes like, oh, she's ghosting, she's not interested. And it's like, but she said this thing. Another thing guys will do too is they'll assume because a woman was showing interest early on in the process that interest is there forever. So let's say she was laughing at all your jokes on date 1, right? Well, now you're on date 4. She's not laughing at your jokes. She's kind of on her phone, whatever, this is that. And the guy will think like, but she was laughing at my jokes. Yeah, on date 1, but this is date 4. And she's not showing the same high interest signals she was showing, but a guy will bypass that because he's in denial about it happening. So that's the first thing, is that sometimes a guy can't tell a woman's not interested because he's actually in denial of the actual situation. The second reason that a man can't tell if a woman is faking interest is because he is trying too hard. And sometimes, this is especially true, when we're really gung-ho about a woman, we're trying to throw all the tricks we have at the wall and hoping she's going to stay around, she's going to want to be with us. And we're putting so much energy and effort into this pursuit that when she starts like showing lesser signs of interest, we're still in this train of like, but I'm throwing everything I got into it, so she's got to like me, she's got to be a thing. And we're not looking at but objectively, is she showing us signs still that she wants us? Is she saying yes to dates? Is she talking kindly about us? Is she leaving us little heart emojis on our text? Like none of this stuff's happening anymore, but we're still in the process of throwing all our energy at it. And now as men, we don't want to think that energy is wasted. So we'll just keep trying to pursue an option that is no longer showing us high interest, and then wonder later on what was going on and say, well, she was just lying to me the whole time. No, you were throwing a lot of energy into the situation and you weren't recognizing that she wasn't putting the same energy in, and you just kept going. And you got to not do that. The third reason that men oftentimes can't tell if a woman is faking interest is because they're inexperienced in dating. Newcomers in the game that have never been around a woman before, or they're still very, like, you could be 25, 30 and still not have really been on a high amount of dates or had a girlfriend or whatever. You're very inexperienced to what buying signals are and what red flags are and what negative signals are. And if you're a guy that hasn't had a lot of dating experience, you might see a woman not texting you back for 4 days at a time as like, oh, she's just busy. Oh, we had a good time on that date, so she wouldn't just ignore me. So it must be something else. Or, oh, she'll be, flirting with a guy friend of hers, and you'll think like, oh, but no, she just said they're friends. I mean, yeah, he's like really hugging her tight and like nestled up in her neck. But that's just it's no big deal. She's still interested in me because we're on this. I took her out and I paid for our movie, even though she invited this guy along to come with us. But yeah, whatever. Like, they're very inexperienced in the things that women will do that show that they're not interested, even if they're with you. Because women will say at times, not all the time, but at times, say yes to a date because she's bored or because she wants to feel attractive and pretty, and you're the only person that this week that currently asked her out, and she'll say yes to it, but she'll still be on that date, like not giving you a lot of verbal connection, not really staring at you, trying to look away from you, looking at her phone, and she'll be doing stuff on the date that's really showing that she's not actually wanting to be there. But if you're inexperienced, you won't recognize that those are the signals that she's throwing. And then later on think that she was faking it the whole time, when really just you were too inexperienced to look at signs that indicated that she wasn't as interested as you wanted her to be. So that's the third thing. Good old sink water. The fourth reason that men can't tell if a woman is faking interest is because they are blinded by their own attraction. Look, guys, I'm telling you, when women are starting to lose interest and you're paying attention and you're outside of your ego, you will very easily start to notice, oh, she's pulling back some. Oh, wait, she's not, responding to like date requests anymore. Oh, she's, suddenly want to spend more time with her friends. Like these are all very observable things. And if you're in the know, you'll be like, okay, once again, it looks like she's starting to not be interested. I should probably have a conversation and see if what's what or whatever. But if you're blinded by your own attraction, then it can be very hard to point out to yourself that this woman is no longer showing attraction. Because again, we're thinking she showed attraction at one point, so it should just stay there. And sometimes early on in the dating process, because we fall a lot harder, we'll think after 1 or 2 dates, oh, she said yes to 2 dates. I already like her. I'm so attracted. I'm going to do everything I can to like try to get in a relationship or get her in the bedroom or whatever. And we don't want to see that this person is suddenly like losing attraction for us, or that she's suddenly showing interest towards somebody else instead of us. And because it hurts our feelings, it hurts our ego. And when you're blinded by your own attraction, man, it's like you're sitting there thinking like she's the most prettiest thing. You'll let a woman walk all over you if it means you get to sleep with her or be with her. And that's where guys trip it up, because again, later on, they're like, how did I not see this woman didn't have interest in me? And it's like, dude, she was doing all the things to try to not be near you, to not let you touch her, to not let you get in the bedroom with her and stuff like that. But you just really, really liked her. And when as guys, when we really like a woman, we really want her. We want to do everything we can to make sure she's going to stay with us. And it can be very hard to jump out of that headspace and realize, but objectively, just because I find her attracted doesn't mean that she's still in that place. And is it fair for me to keep trying to chase after this woman, knowing that's probably like annoying the crap out of her? Or can I objectively say, as much as I like her and think she's attractive, that she's not really trying to be with me like that? And that's a really hard thing for guys to do. So it's just easier to say she was lying to me the whole time, even though she was probably showing stuff. So that's number 4. And then the 5th reason that men oftentimes can't tell if a woman is faking interest is because they're afraid of rejection. Having to admit that a woman you have high interest in probably doesn't like you is you having to admit that this woman is actively rejecting you. And to be honest, I talked about the guy with autism earlier about the whole like being hurt by rejection. To a lot of men, getting rejected feels like a gut punch that we were not prepared for. We met this woman, we went on dates with her, we had high hopes that this woman was going to be the end all be all, and now we got to tell ourselves that's probably not going to happen. It's a very hard thing. Hey, I'm a guy that I've had to, because I've gotten better at this whole process, I've been a guy that has been actively dating women that I had to look at one point and be like, she's attractive, I think the world of her, but just these things aren't lining up, and I got to be the one to dump her. And that's hard. So imagine now you having to say, I know this woman is not attracted to me anymore. I got to admit to myself that she doesn't like the way I look, the way I dress, the way I am. And that's a hard thing to do. And men don't want to do it. So rather than go face the rejection, these are like the guys that like, they'll start, a woman will start ghosting them or showing interest. And they'll be the ones that write me saying like, but how can I get her back? And what can I do? And is there a way to salvage this? And I'm thinking to myself, I want to say, yeah, but realistically, no. Like, it's not going to be a thing. I'm sorry. It's not a thing I can help you save, So recognize that, yes, there are women out there that will fake interest to try to get money and stuff from you. But even in those interests, this goes back to women will still give themselves away. They're trying to ask for extra money from you. They're trying to do these other various things that indicate that they're not really in it for you. You got to be recognizing, this goes back to denial. You got to see, is she in it for you or in it for me? This is why early on in the dating process, you should be doing extra cheap dates. You shouldn't be trying to spend a whole lot of money. You should be trying to, be patient to see how she's going to react if you don't talk to her 2 or 3 days at a time. Like, all these things are designed in part to help you see if they're really interested in you or if they're just in it for themselves. And it's hard to do that if you're living in the world of denial and if you're, blinded by your your own attraction, if you're trying too hard, if you're inexperienced, and if you're afraid of rejection. This is why rejection needs to become an important part of the dating process that you become used to, because that way you'll be able to be in situations that aren't serving you and say, this person isn't serving me anymore, I got to get rid of them. Or you can not have an ego when you're saying, this woman doesn't seem to be attracted anymore, so as much as it hurts me in the moment, I got to move on, all right? Anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for joining this live. My computer battery is about to die, so I'm about to sign off. But for those of you that have questions you want me to answer on one of these shows, leave it in the comments. If you want some one-on-one coaching or to sign up for my Introvert Dating Success Coaching Academy, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, look on the front page, or click on the coaching tab. Also, check on the products tab. I have ebooks like Texting Like a Boss, my book on how to not get women, my album by Non Juan called No Girls For You. Check out all that great stuff at the website. And yeah, it'll be a great place to be. So thank you guys for checking out this show. Be sure to tell your friends about it. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I will catch you guys on the next one. All right, I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Introvert Dating Success Podcast. Visit us at introvertdatingsuccess.com for more great tips on attracting women using your natural introvert charm. Oh, yeah.